All right.
So I bought a Batman comic. Ooh, it shipped.
Which one?
It's called Legends of the Dark Knight. It's the first book that Mark Millar wrote, and it's about someone breaking into Wayne Manor to rob Bruce Wayne because he realized that Bruce Wayne is out of the manor every night. And I was like, that's cool.
Mm.
And it's like Christmassy.
Yep.
So it's like set during Christmas. And I'm like, sweet. I'm into it. And it was like, I got it for super cheap. I think I paid like $5 plus like $2 for shipping or whatever. And the guy, I don't really care, but the guy said that it's in really, really good condition, which is really good. Because that's kind of, especially with the older stuff, if you can find something that's in really good shape, it's kind of a gem. So I just had an update on eBay. That's why I bring that up, and
Nice.
I'm branching out into some of just so much of just slowly into like other stuff. But it's tough because sometimes the things that I want to read are really expensive. So you're like, oh, that looks really cool, and then you're like, why is that $300? But yeah, man. How
I
are
feel you
you?
on that. My favorite Batman comic is, and I don't even read comics that much, um, is The Long Halloween. That's my favorite one.
Okay.
Really, really enjoy that one. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man, especially after going from watching Echo and I'm not going to include the Beekeeper in the same breath
Oh,
as Echo,
bruh.
but going from watching Echo, the Beekeeper was a high point for me in the midst of watching going from Silent Night, The Bricklayer, Echo, and then Beekeeper. I mean, you know,
Dude,
man can ask
I've
for much
I've
more.
I've got to pull up some of the comments from I'm just going to pull from YouTube because I've got it a little more readily available. Um there were quite a few people defending Echo, like more than I expected.
Oh, a lot, dude. They came out of the woodworks.
I know I saw a few on Twitter, and I was telling Jake about it a little bit, that someone was like, "Oh no, Echo is reviving interest in ground level heroes," and I'm like, "What? Like where? Okay, like legitimately, I don't do this often, but I just want to be like source. Like, are you just saying that? Like, who is saying like Echo was so good that now everybody wants Punisher back and Daredevil back and all this stuff? They want Daredevil from Netflix back. They want Punisher from Netflix back. They don't want Disney Echo.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
That's not that's not the goal.
uh, one guy, like a few people are like it's so funny, man. I guess we still haven't hit and it's insane to me, but we still haven't hit the bottom for Marvel where people are finally just like, oh yeah, this stuff sucks. Like it's like some of it's allowable, and then most of the people who are like quote unquote detractors of the stuff, when we're just like, yeah, Marvel sucks now, it's bad. It's
Yeah.
obviously bad. So I don't know what you guys are actually watching, and then I wonder sometimes, like, I still do, even though at this point I'm convinced it's more actual people than not. And if they're trolling, they're not very good at it because it's just like, you could at least put like a wink, wink, nod, like a little wink in there or whatever. But so much
Right.
of the time, I'm just like, I think you're serious. You actually thought this was good, like, And then you do this on TikTok a lot, but you're like, oh, cool. What did you like about it? And it's always just like it's like the talking points from like the review from IGN where they're like, it's brutal, diversity, uh pick another talking point
It
that's,
had guy in it that talked and spoke and used English.
yeah, oh, soft side of Kingpin, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, y'all, and this is how you know, dude, that like people aren't either paying attention or they're watching this stuff in a bubble as if Kingpin didn't already have 3 seasons and Hawkeye, unfortunately, of stuff, of character development.
Right.
It's frustrating, I'm just like, does no one remember season 1 of Daredevil? Like, it's what I keep going back to, And then I want us to do it eventually, but and I left it up to you for tonight what we were gonna watch and talk about. But I do want us to do the raid because I think it's at this point it's almost important that we watch that movie and be like, this is how you do action, this is how you do martial arts, and you don't have to copy it like point for point. I don't think that's right. But Daredevil season 1, some of its influence was from the raid. So it's like, people could just get influenced by Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime. Just watch some of the action in that. And then figure out how you can, like, do something in live action that's kind of similar. It doesn't have to be one for one because Jujutsu Kaisen gets bonkers with some of its action. But that's not really the point. It's not a one-for-one scenario. It's a, how do we take inspiration from the action stuff that is awesome, and how do we do that for our stuff in our story? And it's just not Echo. Echo's stupid and lame, and I don't understand.
There's so many issues with it.
Bro.
I'm right there with you because I don't understand where people are coming from when they say that it's good. I can understand if someone said, well, it has good parts in it, right?
Right.
You could potentially say that. But to say that objectively, that it's a well-structured story with good character arcs, and in-depth storytelling and good editing and good sound mixing and directing and scene setup and fight choreography, it's like you were saying last week, there's issues that go beyond the writing with Echo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they're there in the other shows too, but Echo, it's just so obvious with that show. But yeah, it was like stuff I think I talked about it already, but that show was insane to me, the way that people would talk to each other, and I'd be like, did they have a conversation off screen that I just wasn't aware? And like people their characters would just act in ways that didn't feel realistic. And when I say that, because we'll talk about it a little bit with Puss in Boots tonight, but when I say that, I mean like for what I have been told about the show, right? We're talking about grounded superheroes, if you will. Like, we're not talking Iron Man, we're not talking Hulk. It's like Echo, she gets superpowers, quote unquote, her like mystical, does whatever she needs to do superpowers. It might as well be the Force. You know what I mean? It's like what they turned the Force into in Star Wars. But it's a grounded show, and so I'm expecting a lot of that stuff to work a certain way. And the worst part is that because Echo now has these like superpowers, it's like Kingpin, I guess, doesn't even really stand a chance against her. And I'm like, it just makes it lame. Like, she's too strong now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least it was like, you have to be able... the reason certain heroes and villains always work well against each other is because it's kind of got a yin and yang thing. So, like, maybe one of them kind of has special abilities, but, they're not flying, or they don't have super strength. Or if they have super strength, there's, like, a limit to it. Or they have a specific weakness that's a lot easier for a normal, maybe higher level of intelligence leader of a gang to deal with. I mean, there's stuff that you can work with that, and that's where a lot of the writing comes
into play.
Jake said, Daredevil is terrible. The idea that a lawyer would do anything selfless or heroic is too absurd even for TV. Got him. But hello to everyone in the troll room and everyone listening to this in other areas. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, you're fine. I was just going to say, and you get the stark contrast of what you were just referring to with Echo's power level being higher than Kingpin's now because of her abilities, her superhero powers.
Yeah.
And you get the stark contrast of being able to have a villain who poses an actual threat to the protagonist, to the hero of the story,
Yeah.
like you do in. You get the contrast of that in Puss in Boots, where it's done rightly, because and you don't even just have one villain, right? In Puss in Boots, you have three separate villains,
So we're gonna talk about that a little bit tonight.
antagonists,
Yeah, there you
if
go.
you will.
Yeah.
And
There's a difference. There is a difference.
there is all three have a different. They're a different archetype of a villain. So yeah. Don't forget too. You wanted to get into. I want to talk about the Rings of Power. Too.
Yes, I know you. Yeah, that was on the docket, but I wasn't 100% sure if you were still going to talk about it, so I didn't put it in the title. But I think that's fine.
No, that's okay.
Okay, Joseph, let's talk about some Lord of the Rings updates. I mean, it's coming at some point. We got quite a few shows in the pipeline in the coming months. Obviously, Rings of Power being at least on the end of we know it's going to be really bad. It's probably the big one for the year. Golly, I cannot believe there's going to be
if it comes out this year.
If
it comes out this year,
are we thinking it's not? Is there?
It's possible because there's been. I know that one of the showrunners had said that it's possible it could take 2 years for this to come out, and this was towards the, that would be in 2025 or 2026. I think it was. I can't remember. One of the showrunners said that, and then there's also been different big events that they haven't posted any information for, and then I think with Amazon's what is it? They took the Rings of Power off some kind of award or looking forward to for 2024 as well. So,
maybe they just smartened up.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think if the Super Bowl passes and there's not a commercial during the Super Bowl for it, then I think that pretty much solidifies it.
Okay.
And so I want to start off by saying, this is information from the OneRing.net that was originally posted on 4chan. And so with 4chan being the source, of course, be highly skeptical. This is the problem. This is the best way to say it. If the first season of the Rings of Power was not so bad, it would make these rumors less believable to where no one would give them the time of day.
Okay.
But because the first season was so bad, it's like, well, some of these I think they're bad enough to include this in the into the storyline for season 2. Not just even the lore breaks, but also repeating certain plot points.
Right.
And not changing the game and learning anything from season 1.
What a surprise.
So, yeah. So I digress to say this, obviously take it with a grain of salt, but there's certain things I'll say, I think this is probably more true. This is probably less true. The first one being that Amazon has secretly acquired the rights to the Silmarillion for use in the second season.
Dude, if that was true,
Go ahead.
If that was true, wouldn't they have talked about, wouldn't that have come out already as hey,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? That's not something Amazon is clearly aware. They know where Rings of Power really sits with people through all of their faking the reviews, to all of the stupid stuff that they did with the quote unquote fans or the super fans, and then trying to get lore masters involved who are, when it really comes down to it, there's no denying that some of those people I would say definitely know lore, right? But when it comes to actually watching a show or doing something like that, they're as normie as anybody else, because they're looking at it and going, or Arundel, or whatever the sword was. Forgive me, because I'm not a massive Lord of the Rings fan. It was that sword, right? In Anduril. And they're oh, there it is. The same way that Daredevil comes on screen in Echo, and they're like, oh, there it is. Or Star Wars, it's like, oh, yeah, look, Darth Vader. Oh, he Vadered. It's the same. It's the same thing. And so to be like, hey, this was an Easter egg in Rings of Power, and then you want to go on like a lore dump about that thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the show. It doesn't make it
It's
better or worse.
Yeah, it's like when people saw Anduril, as you were saying, the sword, Narsil. For those who aren't familiar,
Uh,
that Aragorn sword that he, gets
when he reforges,
refurbished.
yeah,
Yeah, gets refurbished,
reforged.
reforged, and uh, takes to battle with them and everything like that. At the end of the third movie, if you're not familiar with the books, or yeah, it happens in the books and the movies too. But
Yeah, just
uh,
way sooner in the books. Like
yeah,
it's
way
unreal. That is such a massive difference.
it is.
Um, but yeah, it's
But
oh sorry, go ahead.
no, but yeah. So, uh, as oh crap, what were we saying?
We were just talking about the sort of like jangling. It's jangling keys
Jangling keys.
ultimately.
Yep.
And it's everything. And the thing is that that's fine. I don't think throwing in or like peppering in interesting lore bits or things in the background that kind of make sense that maybe that would have been there. It's no big it's
Oh,
no big deal.
it would have been cool in season one, right? You know how they had for the first few episodes or whatnot that
Yeah.
that magical sword, right? And it ended up just being a freaking key to a freaking damn. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
It would have been cool. Oh, okay, this is Gore thing, or this is this sword or whatnot that actually served the purpose and helped in battle and did something had because like I'm not without getting into all the lore.
Right.
That would have been a better use of it versus having it just merely be a key that turns something that releases water to be Mordor's origin story, which is not Mordor's origin story at all.
Still,
And if you are going to do a Mordor
dude.
origin story, at least if you're going to deviate, you got to execute on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, execution
yeah.
is key, and I think when you and I, if we were to like really get to the root of a lot of what we talk about, it really is the execution of a lot of this stuff. I think that in
Exactly.
something good, you and I are typically willing to forgive little like certain details that's like, oh, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But because I
I was
think
just
there's some of that
what- Go
in
ahead.
Puss in Boots. I mean, even for it being a what would you call it? There's
Kids
like
movie?
cartoon physics, I guess is the right term. And some stuff that's definitely like, wait, how is that? What are they doing? Like, there's a few. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of, but there's a few times in it where it definitely gets into the realm of like Looney Tune-ish
Yeah.
versus the more serious moments in it. But I think there's willingness to forgive those kind of things. One for sort of the impact of moments where they do certain things or they make creative decisions that I think sometimes you can get a little too like it's easy to get caught up in that stuff and be like it doesn't matter. That's like it's like a non-issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus like stuff where it's like choppy or the dialogue is really bad or you cut from scene to scene and it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. When they deviate and they don't execute well on it.
Yeah.
For example, the first three acts of the Batman, right, where they deviated from the Long Halloween comic book. A lot of it worked because it was well executed, and so versus in the Rings of Power using that where it deviated from the source material,
Everything.
they didn't execute it well at all. Versus when how Peter Jackson deviated from the source material in all three Lord of the Rings movies. Most of them, for me at least, worked.
Right.
And so, as long as it's executed well, it's fine. It really just depends on what you're deviating from the source material.
Right.
Number one, how important is it? And then number two, it would be the execution of that. And so not including Tom Bombadil, that's fine because ultimately that doesn't affect the story. Yeah, it would have been nice to see Tom and Goldberry. Yeah, but again, that doesn't affect the story at all. Or having, for example, the elves show up at the Battle of Helm's Deep. That doesn't happen in the books. but it happens in the movie because and the Two Towers because Peter Jackson's trying to get home to the audience that hey, man truly is alone in this battle against Sauron.
Yeah.
So and other things, as well. Probably the most controversial I would say would be Aragorn's arc for me.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
yeah.
But at the same time, I love
I
the book version too.
I used to. It's funny. I used to actually get into arguments in high school with one of my English teachers, in a good way. But like she particularly does not like his arc in the movies, and I understand why they decided to go in that direction. The more reluctant hero, it's like a classic movie trope. And I think you already had Legolas, who is pretty stoic, and we've talked about this before. I don't mean this in a bad way, but he is pretty one dimensional. There are like little things that change in his character over time, but he is definitely of like him, Gimli, and Aragorn. Like he changes, I think, the least through those movies. You see a lot of interesting stuff happening with Gimli, and then I think even with Legolas and like the relationship that he has with the three of them, you see that, and then obviously like there is like a bit of a connection with him and Gimli as well. But yeah, I think they needed a little bit more for what they were going for Aragorn to be confident, but the whole like becoming king thing, instead of it not being the right time, it's more of a he doesn't feel worthy, I guess, or that like it's there's a few different things going on there that's like, what if I'm the same as the rest of them? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's cool. I don't mind the dimension. I don't mind the change. But I also understand why people don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
again. It's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, cool. I mean, like I get it. I understand why you would have preferred it to be a different way.
That's the only argument you can use because you can't say Peter Jackson didn't execute it well.
Yeah.
All you have to do is all you can argue is that I don't like the change from the books, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I get that. I'm kind of like right there in the middle. I like what Peter Jackson did, but I also kind of like I enjoy Aragorn's arc in the book better than what Peter Jackson portrayed.
Right.
And I think that kind of how Peter Jackson portrayed all the elves for the most part being similar in personality and character is also plays into the bit to where you kind of need Aragorn to have that sort of art because Peter Jackson didn't really portray Legolas as closely to the. He portrayed him pretty close,
Yeah.
but not as closely as he is in the books. He's more emotional in the books for sure. But going on, so the whole thing around the rights to the Silmarillion, probably what is more likely is Amazon went to the Tolkien estate and said, "Hey, can we have rights to this specific part to use because it's an important plot point? Because supposedly they're gonna have the music of the Ainur in the opening scene of Episode 1, where Eru Ilúvatar, who was the god of Middle Earth, and he uses a secret flame to create Melkor, apparently first, and then Melkor watches as Eru creates all the Valar and the Maiar, and then Eru is disembodied voice, vaguely human shape, but no characteristics can be made out. Which I will say, I think that's smart. I don't think you should like give him anything that's distinctive that anybody can make out. However, I have a problem. I think they're gonna, agenda. I think they're gonna insert their intersectional feminism into
I was
that.
thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, bruh, they're gonna try to pull some like Mother Earth, like.
Yeah. It's going to be voiced by a woman or something.
Something weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the secret flame is golden as well, which is weird because if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and check. But I want to say it's supposed to be silver or white. And typically, when you think of the secret fire, which for those who remember in the movies where Gandalf doesn't let the Balrog pass, he says, I have the secret fire, the flame of Give me a second. Let me do this. Flame imperishable. Anyway, uh, so and then along with that, Melkor too. At least when it comes to the material gold, the substance, he actually can kind of bend it to his will. Um, so that's interesting if that ends up being true. Anyway, so I digress, or moving forward, I should say. Uh, Myron, excuse me, I almost said Marion. Myron, which is Sauron's Maiar name, is going to be played by a different actor. That's not Charlie Vickers or that Indian actor. I can't remember his name. Gavi Singh Chera is what they have here, and I don't want to butcher his name, but probably. Sorry if I did. Anyway, it's going to be a different actor playing the Maiar Sauron, supposedly before he turned evil.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to say there's another actor, the Indian actor, who's playing the Anatar form of Sauron. And it's like, I think they're leaning too much into this Sauron being a shapeshifter. And how are they going to present it? Are they going to present it like they did with Hallbrand, to where it's supposed to be a mystery? Or are we, the audience, going to automatically know?
Yeah. Well, we'll probably know anyway, just because they keep announcing that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
I think it doesn't
dumb,
even.
Man. I just like.
I wish it was. I wish we were on the other side of this, where it was like actually interesting and good, and we could talk about it and the potential for what they're going to do. But it's pretty much the potential how they're going to continue to butcher what they started in season 1.
Yeah,
it's weird, dude.
The first episode is supposed to be from Sauron's perspective, supposedly. If this rumor is or isn't true, and I think they're leaning too much into trying to make Sauron a sympathetic villain versus he should be like Jack Horner in Puss in Boots, not comedic villain, right? That's not what I mean, but just someone who is
he's just bad.
The essence, the personification of evil.
Yeah, he's
right.
He's bad. There's not a redeeming bone in his body.
Yep.
And there's just not enough of that anymore. Little bits here and there, but yeah, it just seems like in all popular media now, everything has to be like, well, from a certain perspective, the Jedi are evil. It's like that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You haven't heard any of these rumors.
No,
my bad. For some reason I was thinking you did. Okay, let me give you a good one then.
Okay,
let me give you a good one.
Oh no.
All right, so, all right. So the elf that wasn't in Tolkien's books, Adar, right?
Adar, yeah, the guy that gets getting replaced because the original actor was like, "Wow, I should probably not be in this."
Yeah. So Sauron has a son, and guess who kills him?
Sauron
Adar
has a son. Adar killed Sauron's son. Now I'm assuming none of that is actually actual lore.
No, none of that is lore. Sauron did not have a son, love interest, any of that like that.
Gosh, dude, why does this all sound so boring?
And to my understanding, oh man, Melian is the one that comes to the forefront of my mind. I think there may be one other Maiar that had a relationship with an elf, potentially. I think it was just Melian though. But she had a relationship with what's his name? Dior, was it? No. But anyway, I can't remember off the top of my head now.
It's okay.
But Sauron doing it is just,
yeah.
It's just like, come on, what are you doing, man? Like, this is not going to be good.
Man, I can't wait.
I know it's going to be good for us.
Oh, it's going to be
great. When someone posted this on Twitter, the High King Bearnor is the guy's name, and I was like, on one hand, I don't want this to be true, but on the other hand, it's going to help our YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly. It's just great content, for like a month and a half or whatever, and longer with the with clips and stuff. Like, it's just, I mean, do we still have people commenting on stuff from nearly 2 years ago?
Oh yeah, we do.
That stuff.
Melian's husband was Thingol. That's what I was gonna say next,
Okay.
not because Dior was their son, I believe. But anyway, yeah, we still have people commenting on our stuff because they just gave us ample material to
Ah,
butcher them on,
holy
and this is going to be
smokes.
one of them. Sauron having a
Yeah.
son is complete bullcrap.
Yeah.
And Joseph Mallet, is that how you pronounce his name?
Who?
Did the smart thing. The guy who played Adar,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah. I
actor.
just I just know him from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he did the
Yeah.
smart thing by leaving. So,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that and it's probably not the first time that I've said this, but I think that the smart move for anyone who is involved in that series would be to get out as fast as possible. Like
well,
leave the sinking ship any way that you can. Um,
well, we'll have another one for you. It gets better. Celeborn, Galadriel's husband, right,
yes.
is in fact not dead. But
Oh,
guess how he'll be showing up? By being
gay.
impersonated by Sauron. Sauron's going back to simple Galadriel again. We get to get that plot point
He
again.
just gosh, he's if that's like the
He's an
whole
incel,
season
bro.
where he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you the truth, but I also still want to be with you." If that's like the season, I'm oh man.
When the writers and the showrunners read uh, the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales and the histories of Middle Earth, they read the storylines about Sauron and they were like, "Yep, he's an incel."
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then apparently, let's see, as fond as we may be of his green robe, gentle nature, talking about Celebrimbor, we can confirm now that in season 2, Celebrimbor's head gets lopped off and stuck up on a pike. Okay, so that's actually in line with the Lord. That's fine. But this is the more egregious one. So I would probably say y- this is arguably the most egregious rumor, if this is true. That Sauron one could potentially be it,
Yeah.
but those would be the top two, right? And it would be the Sauron having a son, and then
Uh,
the one I'm about to say, which is Tom Bombadil and Goldberry show up. However, they apparently when Melkor gets banned by the Valar, right?
yeah.
Uh, that the show, as I understand it, okay, let me just say what they
Yeah.
have. All
Yeah.
right, so
Come on.
Tom
Come on. Come on.
Bombadil and Goldberry are in an episode, and they are played by the same actor and actress as Melkor, which is Morgoth, and Ungoliant. The show will confirm the long-held fan theory that Tom and Goldberry are Melkor and Ungoliant, serving out their punishment bestowed on them by Mandos, which is one of the Valar. Uh, and so, yeah, that's extremely just
Hmm.
outrageous trying to take their
Basically a fan theory and turning it into quote unquote.
dude. That's not even fan theory. Maybe it's super fans
Oh, okay.
from
It,
season one,
I'll be
but
honest
like
with
that's
you.
what
That
fan theory.
yeah. Well,
And go ahead.
I'll be honest with you. That meant like nothing to me.
Yeah, well,
You know what I
I'll
mean?
say this. Yeah,
It's
what do you
just
mean by
kind of.
that?
I just mean like you said that and it's like it's just like nothing. I'm
Yeah.
like okay, like it's one thing to be like okay, well like Sauron they're pretending like Sauron has a son. I was like okay, I have like some sort of connection to that. But like what you just said, like that might be something that if you were like crazy deep into the lore, you'd be like, I can't believe they're even
Oh, like
trying to
me.
do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
darn
I get
drat, sorry. Like I, it's like,
I
okay,
get that. I
yeah,
will say this that the One Ring says, which kudos to them, that there's never been a fan theory like that, and so that's just a bunch of bull crap. But I mean, that can't. Surely they're not
see,
that dumb to do that
s-
because if they did that, that's the reason why this is important is because I know a lot of the hardcore Tolkien fans have already left from the first season,
yeah,
right? This is just going to not nail that in the coffin. This is like you're going to add more dirt on top of the soil where the coffin is to make it deeper, right?
Right. But see,
Um,
this is what I mean though, is like cuz Jake knows the lore pretty well and he's in the troll room and he's like there's no possible way the words Tom Bombadil and Goldberry are Morton and Ungoliant were said or Ungoliant. So it's like
yep.
he gets it, and that's like what I'm saying is like I understand from the perspective of like wow, that's clearly like a massive lore break for people who know this stuff and like it. It's just from my perspective, I'm like, oh, sorry for your loss.
Funny enough, though, is they're also going to give us the origin story in kind of a standalone episode. It seems like of Shadowfax, because
Oh,
apparently we were all
cool.
clamoring for that.
Yeah, we definitely needed that. You know, oh my gosh, dude.
So it really just sounds like if any of these are true, that they just don't, they still don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
And supposedly another rumor is,
shocker.
is that the showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, may no longer be the actual showrunners.
Cool. All right, just spiraling further. You know.
Yep.
Oh well, what do we need to do to get people back on board? Oh, say more lore things to them. Yeah, I don't know,
Exactly.
man. I'm curious. I'm curious about the story and what they try to do with it, and this is kind of and we've talked about this in the past. I'm sure we even mentioned it during the Lord of the Rings stuff, but it's like you can't like lore is good and respecting the lore is good in certain circumstances, in especially with movies and television, you cannot go full lore with
It
some of
just
that.
depends.
It does depend. It's good to have it, but for instance, like you saying all of that, if that is not executed correctly, you're gonna get people's eyes glazed over. You're not even gonna have to worry about it being stupid because it'll be so boring that people are gonna be like, okay, like think about it, like, oh, are we getting a full episode about how a horse was born?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That's really the
Are we
uh
really getting another storyline on Sauron really trying to get Galadriel to come over to his side by simping for her?
exactly. Like I think that's a really big problem, for sure. But yeah, I think it ultimately it's all just going to be a problem, you know.
Yeah. Well, are you ready to get into Puss in Boots?
Yeah. Now we can talk about good things. All right. Well, where do you want to start? You want to
Ooh,
just
man.
do?
Go. Are you
Um,
doing? Are you going to be showing the actual
yes.
um,
Oh yeah.
guys?
Sorry. I didn't even think about this, Joseph. Forgive me.
That's
Give
okay.
me a
That's
second.
what you got me here for.
Let me see if I can.
I got my notes ready. This is just a superb movie, and this is the fourth time I watched it now, and I got finished with it
Nice.
again. Um,
I haven't.
Jenna said, "Tricks on you, Joseph's explanation of the lore already bored me."
um, and that's the thing is like the reason that friggin' ah, sorry everybody, shut up. Why is there still music playing? Sorry guys. How do I get out of this? Seriously? Did they change Watch Together?
You tell me.
It looks like they did. I don't like this. I do
That's
not.
fine. While you
I do not understand this. I have no memory of this place. Internet, dude. Did you like Watch Together? Yeah, I like it. Take me back so I can figure this out. What's happening?
Yeah, it's just you have Ungoliant, who is this, just
Oh, creator room.
evil
Sorry, guys.
creature that
Here we go.
lusts and for more and more and more and more being transmorphed into freaking Goldberry, who, uh, as Tolkien said, represented the seasonal changes in the Riverlands or whatnot. So
Give me 1 second. I'm almost there. Stupidness. Here we go. Okay, so now I just need to send this to you in Discord.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully I haven't
Whimsical
messed too much.
Tom Bombadil is actually Melkor.
Well,
nerds.
Thank you, Jenna, for the $49.99 donation.
Oh, I didn't even see that part.
Joseph just like, oh, cool comment. We're moving on. Wow. Seriously, appreciated. Holy smokes.
Yeah, for real. Thank you.
Yeah, trick's on you, Joseph. Explanation of the lore already bored me. Well, I guess that's what you're here for, Joseph, is to give us the lore. I mean, you gotta. To be fair, it's like if you're not super into that stuff, some of it is kind of like
boring.
You know that it's not. You know, Aragorn fighting orcs and that whole deal. It's very much and then this and then this and then this.
Yep.
And it's something that you have to be into. Please no more. I can't take any more Silmarillion shredding. Yeah. Jenna, forgive Joseph for his transgression against you. But seriously, thank you for that. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate whenever you guys are able to do stuff like that.
I'll allow that criticism of me for $49.99. You could criticize Joseph for $49.99.
All right. Are you in the watch together?
Yeah, I'm in there.
Cool. Hopefully you can see everything now. I just need to pull up.
Yeah.
Just pull that up.
I'm so excited to talk about this movie. As I was saying, this is the fourth time I watched it, which was yesterday. And I would change my favorite movie of 2022 to this, but I got to, even though, what was that movie? Dude, that war movie on Netflix, The Western Front.
Not all.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
All Quiet on the Western Front. All along the Western Front.
I'm gonna keep that as mine because even though I haven't watched it again since that one time, so the rewatchability factor isn't there like it is with Puss in Boots.
Agreed. This is definitely something I can watch way more often than All Quiet.
Yeah.
I even told you, I was like, I may never actually watch All Quiet on the Western Front again. I won't say never, but yeah, there are definitely American History X is one of those movies for me.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I've seen it. I'm good. I don't need to watch it.
The tones are heavy in it, but in those movies and all three of them, but they're really good movies. It's like I would recommend them to people. But
it's with a warning for me. I always try to do that, especially with people I would say aren't like cinephiles or hey, look, I kind of tried to warn you. Part of me was like, I can't believe he's watching it. But yeah, I'm with you on that. And again, thank you, Jenna, for the $9.99. We appreciate it. Sorry that the lore wasn't what bored you. All right, let's.
Hey, Jenna, I said if you're gonna criticize me, it has to be $49.99, not $9.99.
The market's going down. All right, yeah, let's get into Puss in Boots. Now, do you want to? You have seen this quite a few times. I've watched it all the way through twice in like the last month or so. It's one of those movies that was on my radar. The first time I tried to watch it, I think I had just gotten back from some trip or something, and I, how that can be. And I was so tired, and I was like, "Oh, I'll try to watch this." It was a terrible idea because I have to focus, and if I'm not like fully focused, there's a chance I'm going to fall asleep. It really doesn't matter how good the content is or how good the movie is. It's one of those things where it's like I'm just not staying awake. Like I'm going to get way too comfortable and I'm going to be out. So I did finally, a couple weeks ago, finally sit down and watch this, and really liked it. And then we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for tonight's episode, and I just gave you the choice of 3 movies, and this is the one that you picked. And honestly, I'm really glad that you did, because I really want to talk about this movie, because I think, on a second viewing, it definitely got better. And I don't know when I'll watch it again. but it will be something that I'll probably return to. Like it's the 4K is in my my wish list, the like physical version of it.
Mm-hmm.
That apparently comes with like an extra short or something like that. So it should be pretty interesting to see what that is.
Ooh, that is interesting.
But yeah, I honestly I can't recommend this highly enough. I don't talk about like a movie for all ages. It works on a bunch of different levels, and for me, it's more in the direction of the type of quote unquote kids movie that I would like to see come out.
Yes.
That
Oh, 100%.
that that can be shown to kids that deals with heavy topics that isn't, for instance, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I
I
mean?
mean, to your point, it's the younger aged kids are going to be like, this is silly, this is fun, this is exciting, and then the older age kids, teenagers to young adults to uh, and everything is going to be like, oh wow, the spirit of adventure, go out there, life is what you make of it. And then the older people are going to be able to get the message of facing your own mortality, thinking about death. And it's not like that probably wouldn't happen, in teenagers and young adults as well. But
Yeah,
I try to separate it in that sense to say like there's an experience for all age groups in this movie.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we need more of that. More of this, less of, because this is the kind of movie that flies in the face of the people who constantly say, "Oh, well, it's just a kids movie."
It, yeah, exactly. This is the perfect critique to them to say, hey, you can make a kids movie that has adult tones to it, and it doesn't go beyond a kids movie in the sense of just having sexualized jokes in there that
Right.
only adults can understand. No, it's mature in the different elements, and it's not trying to handle the themes in the movie in a simplistic way, but in complex ways. Like there are some things that are just outside your control that you can't control. But then there are a few things within your control that you can change and you can renew.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Um, but yeah, overall, I mean, like I've already recommended it to a few people. Um, just been like, yeah, this is definitely worth it. It's worth your time. Um, and I love I think I love all the characters in it. I definitely have favorites. And after the second viewing, there's one character that stood out to me more than the rest, but I'll save that until we get a little further into it.
perfect.
And yeah, I guess is there anything else you want to say, or you want to kind of start
Yeah, I would just
chomping
say
through this?
let's. I guess to start off with on the technical aspect, and then we can jump into the movie.
Yeah,
You want to talk about the animation real fast?
yeah, but I mean, like that's gonna come up
Okay.
as we go through it. Hopefully,
Well, I just wanted to say the animation in this film is superb. I think this is
oh,
peak animation,
it's excellent. Yeah,
and I enjoyed their use of 2D and 3D imaging. The animation was just vibrant, colorful,
there we go.
delightful, and it's consistent throughout the entire film. Along with that, it's extremely emotive.
Yeah, I love.
Like the characters don't have to say anything. You can tell what's going through their minds and their hearts just by their emotions, which is high points considering how Disney is.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot with for some reason I think we got like criticized for it with Arcane, where people were like they like thought that the animation was like bad or whatever, and I'm just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? It's good that they have like the that you can see the emotions and that they're sometimes it's a little more exaggerated in animation I think than in other cases, but it's definitely good. Um, yeah, there's a lot that the movie does really really well. Um, and
Exactly. The opening of Puss in Boots that you're showing here, to where uh, he's singing, and you're getting to see all this animation and everything, but they're reestablishing his character as this happy-go-lucky, cavalier
No,
guy who views himself higher than life, like this
yeah.
uh,
Well, have you ever seen the first one?
legend. Yes, I have.
Okay, I have never watched the first one, and I've not heard great things about it. Um, but
Yeah.
regardless, if you've never seen the first one, they do you the favor in this of making it so you really don't need to.
No, that's what I was about to say. I
Oh,
didn't see the
sorry.
first one until after I watched this,
Oh, gotcha.
and there's really no connective thread there's no requirement to watch the first one to be able to enjoy this one and understand it.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Every interaction that Puss has with different characters in this, whether they've been in it before or not, it really isn't important because you're pretty much immediately caught up. You know that
Yeah.
he has a past relationship with Kitty. Without them having to sit and lore dump you at one specific point, they do stretch that out over the course of the movie, and it
Which was a good
culminates.
choice.
Yeah, the way that they handle that is really good because something's kind of off. You know that there was some sort of that clearly they were at least somewhat close at one point or partners at some point, and then something happened that tore that apart. You start to realize that as the movie progresses, and this happens pretty quick. Like the pacing, I guess I should mention this too. Like the pacing in this is really good.
Oh, it is
It's
top notch.
it is just like I, I don't typically like to use the word perfection, but it is definitely like chef's kiss good, where
Dude.
you're watching it, and I'm like, and I guess I didn't really notice it the first time around, but I was like, all right, like they've really they've got like they know what they're making, they know where they're headed, and they're using every bit of time that they have really really well, either to talk more about characters or you have some really good action scenes. The development and the way that the pacing goes from the minute the movie starts to the minute the movie is over is just great. It's just great. Like I can't praise it enough, I don't think. They really
Yeah.
they know how not to waste time and not to waste our time, which I think is something to commend them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's an hour and a half movie that they condense, and it flows as you have already put it perfectly. I mean, there's not one part I can complain about to where this drags a little bit too long.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of it does.
Nope. I mean, it's just every part is necessary, and the connection from the first act all the way to the third act just flows and follows an excellent pace of
Mhm.
going up and down when it needs to, and not one is to the deterrent of the other as well.
Mhm.
So the
So
same thing with the themes and the tones in this. I mean, the tones, for example, I mean, you go from being afraid and fearful to happy, sad, exhilarated.
right.
Uh,
Well, and it's
but
all
one's not at the. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's all really intentional,
Hmm.
and it's part of the theme of it that we're gonna get to. But yeah, like this first scene where the movie starts out very uplifting,
Yes.
pretty much, and we'll stay out of I think certain spoiler territories until those points are kind of revealed in the movie. Um, and if you haven't seen it yet, stop this right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go watch this and come back because it's just better to experience this firsthand. And if you don't care, that's fine. We're going to talk about it. It might pique your interest by the time we're done. But yeah, you have essentially the way that it works. You get kind of a 3-act. I mean, obviously you have your 3-act structure, and it goes from sort of this like jubilant to terror, and then it builds back up into jubilant again, and then gets brought back down into terror, and then builds back up again and gets brought back in it, and then that final part is the overcoming of all of that, so that the cycle's not repeated again. And it's so simple, but it works so well.
Oh man.
And yeah, so
There's so
go
many
ahead.
things I could praise this movie
I know,
about, and I'm
I
gonna
know.
say, dude, this gets me excited for future DreamWorks movies
I hope,
if they're done like this.
yeah, if they can just maintain the model and work with some of these more, we'll just call them mature themes, I think, for a better way of putting it. Yeah, it's great, and you don't have to make it too complicated. It doesn't have, the themes and the story structure doesn't have to be crazy. It's just a well done story about a hero overcoming obstacles in his life. It's that.
Yep.
It's pretty much that simple, There's great character growth. Yeah.
This is how Puss was handled in this movie is exactly how Indiana Jones and Luke Skywalker should have been handled.
Yeah, and they just weren't at all,
Nope, because one of the things I realized in watching it, what was it? I can't remember if it was the second or the third time, but he is deconstructed from the previous movies he was in, and because he thinks that he's this over the top, higher than life character. He views himself as a legend. He's very selfish, and they handle his character as they pull it apart in a very respectful way. Man, it's hard for me to say any of this because I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll say it like this.
Right.
They deconstruct the character of Puss in an effort to explore his character and rebuild him on a stronger foundation than he was before at the start of the movie.
Yeah. So here we are at the start. It opens up with him having this party in the governor's mansion. There's this great moment. Right. Let me go back just a little bit.
I love the barrels of milk.
Me too. So he comes out and they're having this party. There's a barrels of milk that he cuts open, and the animation for that is really, really good too. And then, clearly, like, all these people love him, and he goes, "People of Cordova," and they're like, "It's Del Mar," and he goes, "People of Del Mar."
It's those little lines that work so well. Jack Horner does something similar in later on,
and that could be a thing, man. Is like maybe, and I would have to sit and really like think about it a little bit more. But there probably is a connection between like old Puss in Boots and Jack Horner, like two sides of the same coin, where like one is the hero and one is the villain, but like their personalities are similar. Where it's like Puss is completely self-absorbed, like everything is about like keeping his legend alive, and Jack Horner is very similar, where he's completely self-absorbed for his own selfish gain. So they're
because he wants all the attention and all the magic because of what happened to him when he was younger, which we'll see later on.
Yeah. And, of course, this opening isn't very subtle when you kind of understand where the movie's headed, about him speaking about, he's your favorite hero. He's got this whole thing where he's like, where is it? It's like right here. Where? I think I missed it. Who's the gato that rolls the dice and gambles with his life, who's never been touched by a blade? They're not exactly subtle with it, but I don't think it's necessary really to be that subtle because it's not his character,
Right.
Everything is over the top. He is very braggadocious about everything that he does. And I love it. Like, I love that this is kind of, it works so well in the beginning, and I love that, because he's still a great character, and he's got he's doing all of the heroic acts, which still gets you going at the beginning of this. So the governor comes back, and I love this too, because all of this is in an effort to catch you up essentially with who Puss in Boots is. All of these little details about him throwing this party, it is all about him. He's not even in his own home. He's broken into the governor's mansion to throw a party, and he rips down the painting, and he goes through the whole scenario of like taking out all the guards and embarrassing the governor, because he's it's that rogue element in his nature. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And just goes through the whole process of embarrassing him because he does this whole thing. Let's see, I'll play this part real quick because it's kind of cool. He, and again, never been touched by a blade, and he says, "But you," and he cuts, his clothes all up to embarrass him, and it's really good. Really just driving home the point because what happens after this scene is what I was talking about, where you have that climb up and then the shoot down. And so he wakes up the giant, which is an interesting part of this movie. And so I didn't know how it's not all that important in the long run, but how did you feel about the fact that these people live in a town that's like right next to this this thing?
Huge giant.
Yeah, that's like too much noise. They don't. The problem I think for me is that like it's not really established. Like no one's even kind of like, hey guys, like maybe we need to be careful because of this or whatever. It's
like a brief line about that. I mean, it's something
Yeah.
that destroys the movie, right? But
no.
maybe just a line included in there would have made that make more sense.
Yeah,
because it is from an old, fairy tale. So
yeah. And which I guess is fair enough that they are maybe breaking that a little bit in order to be able to set this up, because it is about the fairy tales as well. So then we get the fight with the Giant of Del Mar versus Puss in Boots, and he does something that I think makes all of us hurt just a little bit to this giant. Where he sticks his sword right.
Geez, right? It just makes you squirm just a bit.
Yep. And because it's like it's like worse than death in some ways, where you're like, oh no, I know exactly that feeling.
Yeah.
Everyone can relate to what would happen in that scenario, and even the crowd,
Like,
it's so good. Okay, and so this is some of what I was talking about before. There's a lot of like Looney Tunes cartoon physics in this, where he hits this sign, breaks through a window and multiple walls, and
Yeah.
it's in service of the character.
That's what I was about to say.
So
I'm fine with it because it's in service of the characters you just said, and it goes to, again, it's on a high note showing, hey, Puss is still a fantastic swordsman,
Yeah.
but he also still has this recklessness about him to where, he's relaxed and doesn't care about life.
And you were talking about like the facial animations. This is a really good example of that, where he drinks the coffee or espresso, and just like the way that his face emotes in there. And I don't want to talk about it yet because I don't think we've gotten a scene with it.
You're about
yet.
to have to pause it. All right, pause it.
Okay.
All right, you see who's in the top corner up there? Top
left. That is so good. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
there's so
dude.
much much of this in this. It's
on the first viewing I didn't see that.
Oh, I love
me
it.
The second viewing to see it, dude.
Oh my gosh. Do you think there's more than that? Do you think you think that's the first time that he shows up? We're not going to spend the time hunting him down.
Yeah. I thought about
that's so
hunting
good.
it down and seeing, because when I was watching last night, when I watched the third time and the fourth time, I was really trying to pay attention in other scenes to see if he was there. Like he's there throughout the way, and this is what these writers do better than old Rian Johnson in The Glass Onion, is instead of having to reshoot scenes to show this alternate angle that no one ever noticed, and
it's how it always was. And
yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of stuff, dude. When I was talking about it, we were talking about the Lord of the Rings stuff before. That's the little stuff that the animators are peppering in, or that someone was like, hey, we need to put this character here. And it's a blink. There's quite a few of these in the movie. It's blink if you miss it, blink and you miss it type stuff. But when someone go like what you just did, where you're like, hey, you see who's in that corner, and you're just like, no way. Like that stuff's cool. That's how you do it properly.
It is, man. That just added touch. That death is constant. He was there in the beginning, watching Puss for
Spoilers.
for yeah. Sorry, but it's just so good. Sorry, sometimes my
I know.
passion will carry me away.
I know. You
And
like
I
to
don't
get
know if you
ahead.
caught on this, but did you realize too that the giant slings the bell 7 times, and then you can pay attention to when the
Yeah,
eighth time is.
yeah. The numbers thing is big in these.
Yep.
In this, excuse me. There's quite a
I
few
didn't
of
see a
those moments.
33 though.
I know. I didn't either that I know of. But the whole like nine lives dynamic. There's quite a
Yes.
few. There's like that. The one that I wanted to talk about is reflections. This movie uses reflections in a very specific way throughout the movie. And this is one that I didn't actually notice until, and this is why kind of going through the frames is so good. But you have a lot of characters seeing things, or like you're seeing certain things through the reflections in their eyes.
Yes.
There's some other ones later on. There's one in particular that I love that we'll get to in a minute, that I didn't notice until the second time that I watched it. But there's a lot of that. It's a very specific thing that they did in the movie, with things reflecting in people's eyes and other stuff. And so, yeah, you're right. He does this thing. A lot of people reference this with Attack on Titan, and I'm not really gonna explain potentially why. And I think they might be reading into it maybe a little too much, because it's just like, oh, a small character and a large character fighting. It's like,
Yeah.
if there is something where they're like, oh yeah, it was an inspiration for this fight or whatever, great. But I always thought that one was kind of like maybe. I love it. I didn't notice too. The crowd just being all the way around like this,
Yeah.
like there's nothing going on. Maybe these people are just a little dumb,
Yeah,
and they live next to
maybe.
this big giant.
Along those lines, I did think I didn't. I don't think I recognized this the first 3 times I watched it, but when I watched it yesterday, there's a scene later in the movie, and when we get to I talk about to where it reminded me. I thought, did they get inspiration of this from Mad Max?
Mm. Hmm. Um, so this little twirl move is important to remember. Um, the way this is like one of, you could almost call it one of Puss's signature
Special moves.
moves. Yeah. Um, and I loved watching this, man. Like it was just this shot. I love this shot where he does the camera follows him as he does his little flip.
Yep.
You can tell really how much attention and love was like put into this, and the way we've talked about this with other shows, and of course this is animated, but you can see on screen just the way that the people who put all of this together, they were like, oh, we have to do this, or like, wouldn't it be cool if he does this flip and the camera follows him around, and it's very intentional, and they do it, and it's like, wow, that is really cool, we're keeping that in. You know what I mean? Like there are people who are using their talents in this, to make something really interesting. Whereas like with a lot of the fights that we've seen in Marvel recently, it's just been really boring
And bland
hmm
and it's poorly executed
Yep.
and poorly choreographed.
Yep.
And you can see that it's choreographed exactly. And one of the things I wanted to say is that the passion, kind of like what you're referring to, the passion just exudes through in the movie in every single facet of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that this movie wasn't nominated for Best Picture shows you, and that Avatar shows you a few
Golly.
things. Number one, how award shows don't matter
No.
any longer,
The-
because they don't. Their metrics for determining who should be nominated and who shouldn't are dumb and
Yep.
stupid. And then number two, it also shows you that even though Avatar made more money at the box office, this is a far superior film to Avatar.
Yeah. I'll take your word on that just because I haven't seen the new one. We're talking about the new one, right? Way of Water.
Yeah, Way of Water. Oh,
Yeah, I never watched it.
right.
Yeah, I've not heard
And
great
it's
things.
half your time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is, and again, we're talking pacing. Like it's key, man.
Yeah, I'm fine with a long movie as long as that pacing's there and
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. And
That's just not Avatar.
we've talked about it too, where it's like a slow-paced movie isn't necessarily bad. It's the way that it's done.
Yep.
That's always the way that it works. All right. Well, we get through this fight. He beats the giant.
The bell tolls 7 times.
Yep. And it's still really great. Like all of the animation for this, the way that the giant like is in the background moving towards him. The crowd is now scared, even though they've been surrounded.
Exactly. And the giant's been making large stride moves and everything, and then Puss still. This is just showing again how little he cares for life, and then the bell tolls the 8th time and falls on top of him. It's such a nice touch.
Yeah, and it's funny too. You know what I mean? Like it's good physical humor that he's like, all right, one more, and it's
legend will never die.
Yeah.
And it works too because it's within his character. Like it's silly, it's funny for the kids to laugh, and for all of us to laugh, right? But it works within his character because he's cocky, he's arrogant, and he's like he loves talking about himself. I'm gonna go back and sing one more time,
Yep. And like this is sort of what's interesting too is that this is we're now starting to work on that trajectory downhill. We're not fully there, right? Because he's still got a lot of his confidence while he's talking to the vet, doctor, witch hunter, dentist, right? Something like that. He's got a whole bunch of different jobs.
Yeah.
And basically, so we can move along a little quicker. This entire section is just him getting across. Like you're getting a bit of lore about Puss in Boots. Again, if you've never watched any of these, that he has 9 lives. There seems to be some sort of like magical element to this because he literally has 9 lives.
Yes.
Because he's died 8 times now, and so he's on his last life. And they do like a great little job here of running through all the different ways that he's died. And again, this is humorous.
And there's setup in this as well.
Yep. For later. For later on in the movie where he's talking about when he gets confronted with his past, basically.
Yes.
But yeah, and they're funny, right? It's like him at the card table with all the dogs. And it's like a lot of it's cat. Yeah, a lot of it's this first one's not so much. It's more of like him talking to this woman or whatever. But it's like the dogs and the cats. That he's like a cat always lands on his feet and he jumps off the building. That one might be my favorite.
Again, all these instances are showing him not caring about life.
Yeah. Not needing a spotter, thinking that he can travel by cannon. The sea, like the shellfish, and he's like, whatever. A nice little gingerbread man cameo. He's a master baker, and then of course the bell. And so this is the first time that, and again, like you've been talking about, like the facial animations in this are so good. And it's one of those things that they're so good that you don't always, if you don't stop and look at them all the time, you may not recognize it, other than the fact that you are reading the expressions off of the characters' faces.
Yes. You may not consciously be realizing it, but subconsciously.
Yeah.
As it's going on. And I got to say, too, along with the animation, the voice acting in this is superb from everyone.
Yeah. So Puss doesn't really believe him. He's still arrogant. He's still he has his 8th death isn't something that's changing him at all.
Right.
And despite the warnings, and I love, like, this is such a nice little piece of like subtle comedy in the background that he was like saying all this stuff about, and he's got all these different, he's got this witch over here, all this stuff going on. It's just cool. And of course the little like joke with the the cookies.
And he takes the whole jar.
So this is a pretty great scene. We've got Puss alone in the and you know what, honestly, dude, this comes up later again, but it's intentional that he's by himself here.
Yes, it is.
Not just for what's about to happen, but it's actually character related to Puss in Boots, which I think is something that's really cool. It's, again, these are intentional things that they actually thought about. Okay, who is Puss in Boots' character? It's like he is kind of the lone wolf, right? Like that's kind of his whole deal. Like he does everything alone. It's all about him. He doesn't really have people around him. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't have family. Anyone that's been close to him, he's pushed away for one reason or another.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head saying the lone wolf part, because I found it interesting that one of the antagonists in here was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are. Let's see if I can get a better shot of it. Oh, I love this part. I love this part so much. The candle goes out. Subtle sign of something. Again, subtlety in showing.
And I want to say that's the ninth time a candle or eighth time a candle went out too.
There's also, I believe, 8 shot glasses on the table. It's hard to tell from here, but I believe it's 8 because he's got 7 and then he's got 1 in his hand.
And Puss is having to deal with the idea of retiring and scoffing at it.
Yeah. Again, another reflection. Reflections are a big thing in this.
You reflect on who you are and where you're at in life.
Yep, a lot of that. Yeah, it's all over this movie. Those little details of reflections, and I'll show you my favorite one. It's coming up really soon. The menacing whistle. What a shot! I love this, dude. This is such a good moment.
Yeah, it is.
It's so good.
And just the music, the eeriness that comes in from the music to the theme of one of the villains in this being this wolf right here, man.
So yes, at this point in the movie, we don't know who this character is. And I guess let's get through the scene and then we can kind of talk about who it is. Okay. Again, reflection. You've got the shot glass and Puss's reflection in the shot glass. A lot of you can read a lot into this, and the dynamics between these two characters throughout 90% of this movie, in this one shot, which I love. And so he introduces himself. Great voice acting. Hang on, let me look real quick because I don't remember who does.
Who does what?
Wagner Moura.
Wagner Moura.
Yeah, is the voice.
Oh, he's the guy that plays the. Isn't he the guy that plays what's his name in One Piece, the clown? Or am I thinking of someone else?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay, no, he's not that.
Oh, he was in the Gray Man. That's interesting. He hasn't. He hasn't been. He was in Narcos. That seems to be where he got.
He did a great job here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. His voice acting is excellent in this. So they have a conversation, and obviously he's sort of this. It's the mysterious stranger. Sorry.
This enigma.
My thing's trying to catch up.
No, you're fine. He's a mysterious stranger. He's menacing. He's an enigma.
I love my compliments to your cobbler.
Yeah, and the visual of him as well with the red eyes.
Mm-hmm. And his size compared to Puss in Boots too.
Yes.
It's wonderful. And you just
towering over him.
Yep, there's this. He begins to get uncomfortable, and you think too he's kind of annoyed, but you're getting the feeling that he's actually nervous about the situation. He doesn't want to make eye contact with him. Shows him the wanted sign.
It says, "I want you to. Do you mind signing something for me? Will you sign right here?" And that's what he's doing, tapping dead.
And so he's still. Again, we're still at this point where Puss in Boots considers himself the best. Yeah.
And he thinks the wolf is a bounty hunter.
Yep. But one of the things about it is you can see the dynamic changed the minute that the wolf comes in on screen. He's in control. Everything that he's doing is very calm and collected. And Puss in Boots is still sort of that. He's got that arrogance, but But this is like kind of the minute, right, that it gets literally torn out of his hand. And he's like, hmm. And even the way that Puss in Boots walks away from him like that, he realizes this is a problem for him.
Yep.
You know,
it turns back on him.
Yep. You know, he tries.
The wolf just calls him slow, sloppy, and sad.
Yep. Dodges
just complete
his moves.
confidence from the wolf.
He picks up his sides. This is the shot I was talking about. This is one of my favorite shots in the movie, where you see that again. We're talking these reflections, like they happen a lot.
And with this being death right here, again starts this reflection of coming face to face with your own mortality.
Yep. So they have a fight. Here's that spin move that worked before on the giant. Doesn't work now. You know, he easily deals with it. And, you know, it's a lot of it is that loss of confidence in Puss in Boots. Like, it's just been that, you know, really from the minute that the doctor told him that he was on his last life. And you'll see subtle things with this throughout the movie. There's one when he first gets to Jack Horner's where you can tell he's not as confident in the way that he handles like he tackles obstacles and situations. He's like slower. He's more reserved.
Because that doubt has crept in.
You know, and I mean, he just gets dominated. And then, you know, it all kind of culminates in this moment where he gets cut by a blade for the first time.
Dude, and when this scene happened, okay, so at first when he fights the giant, I'm like, okay, this is just going to be a regular old kids movie, right? And then when the wolf enters into the scene and cuts him, and you know, as you fast forward, he sees the blood and he puts it on his hand. Mm-hmm. The movie gets real in that instant.
It's kind of crazy, right? And this is, you know, it's like kids movie, you know what I mean? Like Hurt, just a kids movie. Yeah. Is everything okay? Everything looks fine on my end. Joseph? Oh boy. Uh-oh. Well, I'm here. Can you hear me? I don't know what's going on. Ruh-roh. Hello? I don't know what's happening, folks. I feel like I've been having trouble tonight.
Hey, man. I can hear you.
Hello? Okay.
Hey. Yeah.
Well, okay. Live stream should be good. Everything looks fine on my end.
Yep, I'm good now.
Okay. I don't know what was going on with that. All right.
I have no idea either, but we're back.
We're good. All right.
So as I was saying, when he gets cut, right?
Yes.
And the blood runs down his face.
Yes. I'm trying to get to it. It froze on me a little bit.
No, you're fine.
Give it another second. You can keep talking about it. It'll get there. We'll catch up.
And he grabs his head and looks at the blood, and when he looks at the blood, it becomes real in that moment. And I was just like, oh shoot, this movie has picked up the stakes substantially with the tension.
Yep.
And man, my tension, if it didn't have it had my curiosity before. Now you have my attention.
Yeah.
And I think
there it is.
Yeah, there it is. And you see the reflection of the wolf in his eyes too.
Yep. That's what
you typically don't get blood like this in movies.
Oh, it's so good. And like the reflection is, and again, subtlety, right? So the blood is that's what you're supposed to be looking at, is the blood coming down. But the nice extra details of having the wolf in his eyes is wonderful. It's such like a nice extra bit. And then of course, like, this is what he was looking for, right?
Yep,
the whole time
that's exactly what he was looking for.
He's kind of obsessed with the hunt, and it's a great moment of character development for the wolf as well. That he hit part of what he loves is breaking people down, and that hunt. You know, he says it later on. Yeah, he says it later on in the movie, but it's like he says that like the thrill of the chase is what's exhilarating to him. You know,
Yes.
it's not just about the kill or anything like that. It's the whole thing. And again, it's kind of it's a character trait of a wolf. You know, they're
Yeah.
actually drawing on that, and it's not just about this character, but that personality trait actually comes from somewhere, which I think is cool.
The actual animal.
Yep. Um. So yeah, he chases him, and his life flashes before his eyes. This is so great because this plays into it later. You get like the moment with Shrek and Donkey. We get Kitty for just a second. Who, again, if you haven't ever seen this before, you're not 100% sure about that yet.
You just know because his life is flashing before his eyes. So
Mhm.
these are memorable moments for him.
Yeah, these are things that are important to him,
Significant.
which is, it matters later on too. Lives flashing before your eyes is so good.
Wolf tells him to pick it up, and Puss flees, and the whistling starts.
And it's just like
And
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
love this scene too because he goes right into the bathroom, right? And
Uh-huh.
he's this entire time he's been arrogant, higher than life, this legend, and now he has to humble himself in order to escape out of this room if he
Yep.
values his life through the toilet.
Yep. And it's a great visual for being at the very bottom.
Yep.
He is now
Hitting rock bottom.
essentially this is him hitting rock bottom. And pretty much the end of, not quite the end of the first act. Like I would probably say him going once he leaves. I can't remember her name. It's slipping my mind. Is it Luna?
Mama Luna's.
Is it Luna?
Yeah, Mama Luna's.
I
I
think
that's what it is.
I think leaving her place would probably be what starts the next act. Though you could probably argue that Mama Luna's is the beginning of the next act because he's he goes through the end of that, and now he's in like mourning for himself or whatever,
Yeah.
like leaving his life behind. It's like, and it's funny because it
But
is.
that arrogance is still a bit there in him.
It's still a little bit there. He hasn't lost it completely. But you'll see the effect that it has on him, and especially even living at Mama Luna's after he kind of buries his past. Over time, he sort of succumbs to just being another cat.
Yep.
Does this part crack? The part with him in the tub with her, it's so funny to me. She's like singing the kitty gets a bath.
Yeah. And he's rebellious when he gets there, but again, he falls in line as time goes on.
Yep, and it's such a great scene, or like segment of the movie too, because he takes off the mitts at first. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He's peeing in the toilet still, like,
Cooking food regularly.
Yeah. Where's that? Oh yeah, here it is. Where he's making pancakes. And he's basically getting domesticated, right? And goes through the whole thing, and we get our introduction to Goldilocks. Who?
I want to say, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Let me.
go ahead.
I've got to mention this. I
See
was
if
reading
there's
my
a good
notes
shot
here
of them.
regarding death when he faced death with the wolf, and I love that when he loses to death, he doesn't immediately become a joke, and
Yeah.
they don't, and that really subverted my expectation because I kind of thought, okay, are they going to go the Luke Skywalker and Indiana Jones route with Puss? But again, using it as a way to deconstruct his character and then further develop it, that's fine. Deconstruction is fine when it's done that way.
Yeah,
And
well, you
then-
have to rebuild something there. You can't just deconstruct and leave it there, especially in the case of like Star Wars, like doing that and just leaving characters where they were without really rebuilding them into something. It's sad. Like you
It's better than where they were before, and they
Yeah.
just sabotage the characters.
So you deconstruct a character. Like there is I would say times when you would want to do something like that, especially if you're doing like a drama or something that is supposed to be like a tragedy.
Right.
You deconstruct a character and that their life ends tragically or something of that nature. You remember that movie? I don't know if that's the best example.
The Joker.
No, that's not a good one. No, because even that, like, it's dark and it's like a twisted take on it, but that's deconstruction into rebuilding it as something else. I'd have to think about it a little bit because I was thinking Black Swan, but I don't think that works either. Because typically in any story that you're looking at, whether it goes in a dark direction or not, it's the deconstruction of a character into something where they either overcome or they succumb.
Yes.
And typically they come out of that. You could probably say, The Departed might work with Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Because
yeah, that could.
I don't think there's like a redemption out of that, or there's not like he doesn't succumb. I guess can I spoil that movie? I mean, that movie's been out for what, like 15 years.
You're good, dude.
So he goes undercover.
Somebody in our comments. I was gonna watch that tomorrow.
Well, if you haven't seen it, skip through this or go watch it. But he goes undercover, and it is kind of a deconstruction of his character because he's constantly hurt by everything that goes on in that. Like, it's a really hard thing. And then in an effort to try to get out and to kind of overcome all of that, he gets shot and dies. And so it ends tragically. There isn't that, well, I'm the one that beats the bad guy in the end. I'm the one that, So that stuff does exist. Maybe, I mean, even Darth Vader ultimately gets redemption, but there's examples of it, but they're not as common, I guess, as seeing someone go through a process and then essentially be reborn into whatever comes next for them,
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So we get introduced to Goldilocks and the crew, the crime syndicate.
Yeah. I love them.
The crime, no, the crime family.
The crime family, yeah. It was at the. They'll say it at some point.
Yeah.
And of course, their whole deal is it's either it's the two things that aren't right, and then the thing that's just right.
Yes.
Crime, yeah. The Goldilocks and the Three Bears crime family. In each
search for old Puss.
Yeah, each one of them, they all have different wants and needs. And the whole concept of like the last wish and each one of the characters in this and the effect that they ultimately have on that part of the story and sort of the overarching narrative, I really like a lot too. Because you're right, they are antagonists to Puss in Boots in this, but like I would not necessarily call them the villains, right? Like, there is one person who is the villain because they ultimately have a redemption arc in this, not only within in their group, but also with Puss in Boots.
Yep. Well, she's the sympathetic villain, right? The sympathetic antagonist, and then Jack Horner would be the unsympathetic, and then Death would be the enigmatic villain.
So let's go back to that for just a second, because I said we were going to talk about it. So let's take a second to talk about Death, because
I love that, because him as an enigmatic villain just works so well in this film. Like, Death is always coming; he's always going to be there.
Yeah,
and there's nothing you can do to defeat him. And the mysterious nature of him as well, which, as you pointed out earlier, goes so well with wolves too.
Yeah, and he's my favorite character in the movie.
Oh yeah, it's his theme is, to me, that's an iconic theme.
Yeah. And he
it's so simple.
We'll talk about it, because he has like some dimension to him. And we'll get to. Oh man, it's so hard to pick, because I really like all of the characters in this, but it's actually a lot of some of the side stuff that I think I really, really like in it. Even though I like Puss in Boots' whole journey throughout this, I really, really like the way that a lot of the secondary characters or side characters are used. The that don't have as much screen time. Like
Yes.
I like Death as a character so much. I really want them to make a movie about him.
Oh man, he is superb in this film, and I can almost guarantee that they're going to be using him in future films in some capacity.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a large one, but
I,
yeah, having his own movie would be great. Just man, he just shines in
yep.
this movie so
Yep.
well.
So definitely shout out to that character, and the way that they use him in this is just wonderful. Like he's not used too little; he's used just right, to
I
add
love
to
how he
the.
doesn't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're
To
good.
add to the,
I was gonna say to add to sort of like the whole Goldilocks thing, right? It's not too much, it's not too little. It's just right. Uh,
and I love too how later on that we'll see, you don't know that he's there because he doesn't show up on something,
mhm.
but he is always there, and because he's death, he's not going to show up.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all about really his whole goal in all of this is just like to break Puss in Boots down. And he plays a very specific role and a very important role in the whole kind of like journey as well. So we'll skip ahead just a little bit. We're introduced to
Perito.
Perito, who may or may not be my second favorite. I really like Goldilocks in this and her relationship with the bears. I would have to sit and think a little bit longer if I was going to try to like rank where everyone's
There's
kind
so
of
many
plots. I know.
There's so many good characters in this. Even those that just show up for just a little bit,
Oh.
like we'll get to later.
Oh, dude, there's one of them in particular that I love. But
Oh,
but he, you were talking about expressions, like everything that he does is like, he's a tragic character. Perito is a
yes,
tragic
he is.
character in this, and the way that all of it is basically surrounded with him constantly being like chipper, always being optimistic. Yeah,
You know who he reminded me of? Luffy from One Piece.
yeah, I can
Over
see
the top,
that.
happy, optimistic, happy-go-lucky, and I think it plays perfect in the contrast to Puss and Kitty later on, and especially when we get his story. Are you fine if I go ahead and tell his story, or do you want to
Let's wait just a little bit
wait?
longer.
Okay.
Let's wait a little bit
Okay.
longer. So
But yeah,
they
he's this naive character, this naive, over the top, happy, optimistic character that finds the good in every situation, even though his life is actually a tragedy.
yeah, he and they do it subtly, right? So Perito tells him, he's like, "Hey, do you want to rub my belly?" And you can see that he's got some scratch marks on him that look like maybe they're from one of the cats around here. And then he's got this scar up here that was stitched up. And so it's really just there to show you it's like his. And that's the thing is like it builds you towards learning who he is. So you're getting all these little details before he finally tells you his story on like the back end of the movie. Like you're practically done with the movie by the time that you learn everything that was going on with him.
And they're introducing this mental health theme through him as well.
Yep.
To where that we'll see with Puss in a bit.
Yeah, it's his little character arc.
Yep.
That's so good, and it comes to fruition in such like a great way for like the friendship between the two of them.
Yeah, emotional support animal, PTSD, and the other one.
He wants to be
this
an
is what is
emotional
exactly right
support
here.
animal.
This is where the PTSD shows up.
Yeah, this is a good shot too.
You get the sniffing underneath, and you think, oh, this is going to be death. That's what Puss thinks right away, but in reality, it ends up being someone else.
And it's clever too, the way that they have this sort of like vague shadow where you could think that that's actually what it is. It's very good. There's a lot of thought that was put into this, and I really like that. Obviously, it's Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and it's such a great moment for Puss in Boots too, because it's so much fun what they do to Mama Luna, just like puts her in the piano.
Yeah, it starts playing, and then the son gets attacked by the cats.
Yep. And then they come face to face with him, and he's not even himself. He might as well be dead, right? He's no longer Puss in Boots. And so this is the thing where he finally finds out about the last wish, which they do talk. We kind of skipped over it, but they talk about it at the beginning of the movie, that this star fell, created the dark forest, and that there is a legend that a single wish can be made at this place. So he kind of gets it's kind of that moment, right, where we're starting to build back up again. We're building back up, and we're headed to the introduction of Jack Horner. This is one of the moments I kind of wanted to mention too right here. So Puss in Boots, we get these characters who are coming in. We'll find out that they've got the map for the Last Wish, and you have this great little moment, right, where Puss in Boots is headed up the side, and he doesn't even try to jump, right? Like, this whole movement that he does right here is just like a subtle little indication of him being more careful.
Yes.
He's
lacking confidence.
Yep, and he's taking his mortality a lot more seriously.
Yes.
And of course, he told Perrito that he wanted to be on his own because, again, he constantly is pushing people away. And so they're so great for each other. And again, this is very simple, right? There's not a lot of like complicated relationship stuff going on in this movie. Whoops. Didn't mean to go back like that. But Perrito doesn't want to leave him alone.
Yep. Brings him a stick.
Yep. And again, you get a little bit of it when he's like, "Oh, I'm great at what I do," and he tries to get into the pipe, and he's still very like soft in the way that he's doing things, And we get our introduction to Jack Horner, our main villain of. And dude, this is
our unsympathetic villain. Right there.
This is this is 30 minutes in. When we get introduced to him. So there's like a lot of work that's already been done. And this movie's only roughly about an hour and a half. If you cut out like credits and some of the opening stuff.
Yeah.
It really is only about an hour and a half. And you get a little bit going on with everything, and they're breaking in. You have all of we'll find out soon enough that he is obsessed with magical items. So you get the glass slipper, a phoenix. Allegedly, this is the Beauty and the Beast rose. From what I've heard, I don't know if that's true, but I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think that is.
And I didn't know what this phoenix, or not the phoenix, the Sphinx thing here.
Yeah, I can't remember what.
I don't know what. I don't exactly know what that is. If anybody does, let us know.
Room can help us out.
I believe these are the people from Gulliver's Travels.
I was thinking Peter Pan.
Oh, okay. But he calls
right.
the Lilliputians. I think that's from from that.
I think you're all right.
And then he's got this. I love this part too, because his wall of baby unicorn horns.
He's just such a jerk of a character, but he's so great. He has one of my favorite lines in this.
Yeah,
on in the movie.
Half as heavy, twice as sharp. And there's payoff for this too, which is so good. There's payoff for these later on that I love.
For all of the trinkets that he's essentially showing.
Yeah. So the map, he opens it up. We get a little bit of like backstory,
and we find out that the reason why he is, who he is because Pinocchio stole all his attention because of his magic. He's like, "What's impressive about Pinocchio? I've been a boy this whole time."
Yeah. And it's his little quick origin story. And again, talking about pacing, we don't have to spend a lot of time on his origin. It's very, very simple. And we get a little bit more later on about his family life, which is important. But yeah, he's basically like, I didn't have any magic, and I wanted all the magic. And then
we get introduced to Kitty.
Yeah.
Softballs.
And again, I love her introduction's great. Opens it up. There she is, hiding inside. Little lucky that Jack Horner didn't open it.
Yep.
You know, for whatever reason, you know, the movie has to happen a certain way. They want things to work out a certain way. It's fine. The ladies are uh, distracting enough. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's fine too because even if he had opened it, she's hiding at the top. That there's she's black. She's a black cat,
The
so
stealth stuff.
um,
Yeah, I guess.
they're stealthy.
All right. We get the introduction, and again, it's another one of those moments where if you haven't seen the previous movies, you don't really need to know anything about her, because you learn everything you need to in this.
Hmm.
Oh, excuse me.
And again, I think like they do that teardown of Puss so well, that deconstruction of him, that they don't do it to prop up Kitty as the real hero of the story and the best ever,
Right.
which happens in Indiana Jones and The Last Jedi. That's the one that Ryan directed, right? The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, yeah.
Yeah. And so instead, we get to see that Puss is off his game, but they're building him back up, but they never really show him up.
It's so funny to me the way that the movie pokes at death the whole time too.
Yes.
Even the stuff with the Midas touch is really funny. Where it's like, ever heard of the Midas touch? And she's like, oh cool, dibs, and just grabs it and gets turned to gold.
Yep. Again, this movie, I can't overstate enough how it just does the dynamic so well between both of them. Instead of tearing down the male character for the sake of the female character, or as a means of making the female character look better, by comparison, it handles them both well.
And they're more similar than they are different.
Yes, exactly.
And you get evidence of that, when I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but like when you see the versions of the Dark Forest that they both get, and how they're just kind of like basically the same thing, but just different like issues that they're not willing to come to terms with.
Yep.
Hers, it's like he has this perpetual issue with everything needing to be about him, and it causes him to be alone. Where hers is the other side of it, where she doesn't trust anyone, and because of that, she's alone.
Yep.
And how that dynamic works with them and what they have to figure out about each other over time. I can't remember.
I love that scene, especially when Burrito picks up the map, but we'll get there.
It's really good. It's really good. I love this. Is such like a great little moment and foreshadowing. There's a lot of stuff where the stuff with Goldilocks and the Three Bears is really good, because they talk about the pies here, which comes into play a little bit later with who they are and like what they want as like a family dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And she's constantly trying to keep them in order, like keep them focused on the thing,
on the plan at hand.
So you have the magic carpet ride, and it's just
a trident.
Yep. And it's a lot of this again. This is just like great action moments, but you get that stuff where it's like Puss in Boots and Kitty are kind of like, again, they're very similar to each other, in competition with each other, and it's one of the reasons that they ultimately I think kind of like each other, like they see each other in themselves.
Right.
Anyway, so it's pretty much just an action scene. I don't know, Puss is not the person that he once was, right? And that's something that I think the movie's really trying to get across to you. Like even these little like funny scenes where he gets his beard trapped in this, he's not the character from that first act, fighting the giant and throwing parties in the governor's mansion. He really is different from what he was. And honestly, even the stick is kind of like a interesting use of storytelling as to like where he is now, right? Because it's like he doesn't have a sword anymore. He's literally using his stick.
He poops him on the nose with it.
Yep.
And it's just them leaving and fleeing, and as they flee, guess who's there at the end?
Oh, yes, this is so good. And this is kind of what I was talking about, right? So you have this high, right? So It's not perfect for Puss, but he's getting his confidence back.
Right.
And every time he does that, and something is successful for him, and let's see, where is it? All that gold. That's funny. Yeah, and see this. You see a little bit of him again, right? He's like, "Good people accept this golden gift from Puss in Boots."
What it wasn't even his goal.
Yeah, and they're going through all that, and then all of a sudden there he is again, right? And this is what he does, and it's so cool. And this is such like an intentional thing by the animators that I love, is that they angle him perfectly so it looks like his eyes are just completely red, and you don't see the pupils until he lifts it up just a little bit. And this is it. It's like he's being reminded again, and it's all it takes. And it's one of the things that's so great about Death in this, as a character, is that he is in control ultimately. Every time Puss in Boots starts to climb back up, he gets brought back down, and he's reminded that he's not as good, right? He's not the same person as he was.
No matter how far away he runs, Death will always be able to catch up to him.
Yep, he's right behind him the whole time, and then you get this little like 2 coins for the
2 coins.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And there he is. He's still there. It's so good, dude. So yeah, we get to see a little bit of like the stuff that Jack is taking with him, and a majority.
And Mary Poppins bag.
The Mary Poppins bag. What's so funny is I didn't. You get a glimpse of Excalibur right there, which again, this is one of those moments, dude, where like
you blink and
you miss it. And it comes.
Until you pointed that out, I didn't. I was like, oh wow, I've seen
right
it 4
there.
times and I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you can see it, and it's hidden behind the crossbow, but there's literally like a frame of it, right? I've hit it a couple times. Right here, you can see it.
He's attacking the Phoenix. Jack's character is so great.
Yeah, he's a great villain, man. And then we get and again, blink and you miss it. Did you notice this with the horses?
No, what about them?
They're not horses.
Oh yeah, they're unicorns.
They're unicorns. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And
then this is the scene that reminded me of Mad Max I was referring to.
Yeah.
Where,
okay.
Like,
perfect.
did they get inspiration for it?
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of that. There's actually a little bit of aliens with the posies later on.
Yes.
At least that was kind of what I was getting out of it.
Also, posies were used. What was it, to mask or to treat death back in the day, like to mask the sin of death and everything as well. So
that makes that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
It's very interesting. It's actually something that I really like about Perito, but we could talk about now, or I can wait.
No, we can wait. Okay. We'll if you're cool with it, we're probably gonna jump ahead just a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to.
I know we don't have all the time in the world.
Yeah. So there is quite a bit more conversation that goes on with Perito. This is like when they meet him, and there's lots of great little jokes in here. I think there's one where like they ask him what his name is, right? He's like, "That's a good name, Kitty Softpaws." Maybe it's not yet. Did I miss it? I guess I did miss it.
Who he was.
Yeah, he talks about his name, like the names, and it's just like a really funny moment. And this is the kind of stuff that's like, it works really well for like if you're going to see this with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, where is it? I'm pretty sure it's while they're on this, right?
Where he talks to them about his life.
Not about his life, because that's when we get to the posies. And he's like, "What's your deal anyway? It's okay as long as you believe yourself. What is he, deranged?" He's like, "Oh, I've been called all kinds of things. Bad dog, stupid dog. Hey, you there. Get out of here. Leave it. Drop it. Big rat. What is it? Small pig. Rat face. Butt nugget." And it says bleep for brains. And they both just kind of look at him. And again, it works so well with it's humorous because he as a character is just so naive to all of that.
Clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works really, really well. Um, and the way that he slowly over time has an effect on the two of them
Yeah.
and softens the two of them, and they start seeing things a little bit different because of Perito. Um, so yeah, we make it to the dark forest, which is crazy because it's roughly halfway through the movie. So, this is, um,
An early introduction.
mhm. And we get
And they
this.
finally pull out the map.
Yes. Oh, and we have this little moment that gets a payoff later on. That's another little funny thing, where they do the whole like cute eye things, and then Perito tries to do it,
And he can't.
and he can't. Maybe she teaches him a little bit later, but it is something that kind of builds up to Perito helping at the end.
Yeah.
You get what the
An introduction to the map and its mechanics.
which is great. It's real simple. It's based on the personalities of the character that gets it, which it says a lot about like Goldilocks when she gets a hold of it,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing that maybe she doesn't even realize herself, right? Like she's kind of lying to herself in the movie about what she wants. Go ahead.
Exactly. No, I was gonna say one of the things I love about the map's mechanic is essentially like the forest and the map itself is trying to convince you, like the character, that hey, you don't actually need the wish in order to get what you
Mhm.
want, and it actually tries to dissuade them from it. It's that's why like Puss was forced to confront his past lives when he touched it. Why it recreated Goldilocks. What was it? Nostalgia Pines, her cabin,
Yeah.
and then also why Kitty had to go through all the trust issue ones, and then also Perito having the easiest path because he doesn't actually have anything to gain because he already has his wish.
Yeah.
And so
He got what
that's why he has it. Yep. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry. I was saying he got what he wanted pretty much when he met the two of them.
Yep. Exactly.
That's all he ever wanted was friends, and he sees them as that. And he basically won't leave them. He's so willing to just like stick it out even if they're not great to him throughout the movie. And he breaks them down ultimately. Field of quick and easy solutions. Love it. Yeah, and that's one of the things about the movie that's so great is that it's how a lot of times people will tell you, and this might have been something that was discussed when they were making this, like it's about the journey, not the destination. This movie is like a prime example of that in story form, where ultimately it's not about the destination, it's the journey that gets all of these characters to who they are by the end.
Yes, you're exactly right because the idea is to get the wish, right?
Yep.
But in order to get the wish, you have to confront why you want it in the first place
Uh-huh.
to prove whether or not if that character needs it. And of course, if you try to ignore it and just what's it called, like just use your brute force to go through it,
Yeah.
then you'll end up just being killed by the map or the path that you're on.
Yep.
And I wonder too if that's potentially because we never really got to see Jack Horner's path. We never got to see that at all when he touched the map, did we?
No, because I think by the time he gets it, they're at the very end,
Okay.
so it doesn't even really matter. And
Yeah, I wonder if there wouldn't even be a path for him because since he has no
well, it's
redemption.
it's definitely intentional because instead of him trying to like confront anything, he just uses the magical items to like brute force his way through everything.
Yep.
He uses like everything he has at his disposal. The baker's dozen. All of this is like the phoenix to burn down the posies, which we're getting to. He doesn't reflect or learn anything from this, where all of the other characters do. Like we were saying, it's like their journeys all basically lead them to confronting their issues, coming to realizations about who they are with the people that are close to them, that kind of stuff. It's really good.
Well, I love how you were talking a lot about reflection, and I was saying earlier how like posies are were used to mask like the smell of death and used as a preventative measure to treat people with various different illnesses that could lead them to death and stuff. And I just enjoy the fact of thinking about what you said earlier, reflection, and Puss being there and smelling the flowers would technically reflect how he's trying to and ignore death, hide from death and ignore it.
Uh huh.
And to me, that's just interesting to think about, just intentionality. That like they couldn't have just randomly chose posies.
No, no,
Like
it was
as much
intentional. The
detail.
theme,
Yeah.
the themes, and the themes and the stuff that's surrounding them in this is totally intentional. They knew what they were doing, and that's why it all works so well. And it's one of the reasons the movie's as good as it is. Now, you've been waiting, you've been dying to talk about this. So
Oh yeah.
let why don't you break down Perito's story? Um,
Yeah. So what Perito he basically gets thrown into the river, a river or lake or whatnot, in a box and a sock too, right? Is
yeah.
that what it was? It was like a box that was inside a sock
So they
that.
he talks about, like, he describes this in a way that again is very naive, where he
Hmm.
says, "Oh, they loved they were pranksters and they loved to play hide and seek, and I was always it." You know, and he doesn't understand that that's because they always were just trying to get away from him, right? Pick
Yeah.
on the little guy, am I right? And he was the runt of the litter. And then, yeah, they said they tried putting me in a packing crate, a dumpster. No matter how hard they tried, I always found them. And they put me in a sock with a rock in it, and then they threw him into the water, into the river. I
Yep.
gnawed the hole in the sock, and I swam to the surface. Never found them or my litter mates, so I guess I'm still it, right? So his whole his whole mentality, it somehow is just like blocked out, like all of the cynical stuff that would typically go along with this, you know?
Yes, and I love too that like that death has become so much a part of his character and thematics and his being that
Hmm.
essentially what he just said is that he battled death prior to Puss, and so when he was thrown into the river to die and chewed his way out of the sock, that shows him overcoming death
You know,
and being grateful for life. And despite being this optimistic, naive character in contrast to Puss and Kitty, death is very much part of him because he's faced the reality of death and it serves him in his outlook on life, being grateful, even to like it seems like a naive sense in every situation.
hmm
And like although his character remains pretty static, his character serves in contrast to Puss and Kitty to further their character arcs. And he does have his, his own, character arc as well.
yeah,
But
it's
I
different.
also, yeah, it's different, and I absolutely love the Pocket Full of Posies nursery rhyme because I remember, I think it was the second or third time watching it. I was like, man, I want to say that nursery rhyme originated from something dark. I couldn't remember what it was,
Right.
and it originated from the bubonic plague.
Mm.
And so I just again that theme of death kind of being around Perito and his outlook. I mean, it's just chef's kiss
Yeah.
to the writers.
Um, was there something else I was going to mention to you? Oh, the one thing I would say, and I can't really knock the movie for it. It's more of something that I would have really liked them to do. Um, I would have loved just a small interaction with Perito and Death.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
that would have been great.
Just a little something.
If
You
he would
know,
have said something like "Hey, old friend," or
or
you know,
just I don't know what you would
just
do.
from that that close, almost getting killed by being thrown in the river.
Yeah,
That would have been
even if it's not, he doesn't say
nice to see
anything.
you again.
Yeah, even if he doesn't say anything, but there's like a look, you know,
Yes.
like just something. I would have really liked that because it's kind of like what you're talking about. Is like Perito has like gone, he's been through it, and he won, right? I mean, like obviously, Death says he's like, he comes for everybody, and we'll get to that at the end. Um, but yeah, if I could, if I was to at this time, um, one of the only things that I might knock it for is I would have liked to have seen maybe just these subtle little things with Death at the end.
That would have been
Um,
perfect.
just some very small, like not a lot, right? Because I really do think that he's in the movie the right amount, and it is very focused on his relationship with Puss in Boots. And I'm perfectly happy and perfectly fine with the way that they handled that. I think there's just this piece of me that's like, oh man, just like some tiny interactions, like something with Perito,
They
and
got
then
you wanting more,
I
which
know,
is perfect.
I know, and if I was being a little bit selfish, maybe a little something with Jack Horner. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Just a little something, but I am
Where you
really,
see
really
like
happy with it.
Jack just completely scoff at death to a greater extent than Puss did.
And I'm sure all of that's in there. I think if I spend enough time really like tearing through the movie and the dialogue and the characters and the connections between them, there is definitely and probably even maybe with Goldilocks. I'd have to really, really think about it and kind of dig through it. But there is a relationship with death with a lot of the characters in the movie, to one degree or another, and it comes from different in different ways. I like
Yeah,
that. I really like the way that they handle all of that.
agreed.
All right, let's
Let's skip forward some.
yeah. So we get a lot of really. I love the stuff with the posies and Jack's men.
Yeah,
The
the
guy that gets
baker's
like,
cousins.
yeah, this is kind of one of the things I was talking about. And
He
then
pulls out Excalibur out of his bag, and you think, "Oh, why is he going to pull
where
out
is that?
Excalibur?" And then it has a stone with it.
Yeah,
He was like,
and
and it still deserved just to bring him attention. It's still kind of cool though.
and it's maybe I haven't gotten there quite yet. Okay, I think I thought I was jumping ahead more than I was. So yeah, he pulls out Excalibur like you were saying, and it's such a great character moment for him too, because he's like, yeah, I couldn't get the rock off of it, but still pretty cool, right? um, it's a great little
It's
moment, and
great.
it's a character moment for Jack, or for Jack Horner. Um, Another little character moment that I really like um, is when he hits Goldilocks and the Bears. It froze up on me a little bit
And
again.
the mom protects the
Yeah, she
Goldilocks.
specifically goes after, and like that's a thing. Like I think Mama Bear probably gets the most development of the three,
Yeah.
um, because she has a really close relationship and the way that she really cares for Goldie. But when they get hit, they're tumbling, and then they do the slow motion, and she grabs specifically to protect her, uh, which is very cool, and just like a nice little character moment. And then this is kind of what I was talking about with the whole alien thing, where it's like the men go in and the dude gets like everything sucked off of his bones. And I think this is like even like you remember you were talking about those like facial expressions, even the stuff on Jack, right?
Yep.
It could be the first time that he's really been worried. It's like, oh man, like this is more serious than maybe he even realized. And so they're all getting eaten, and I love the moment with this like this part with the beater, and she's trying to like beat off all the vines. It just reminded me of Alien, whether that was intentional or not. Oh, now
It,
definitely would be in the running for a favorite character for me.
yeah.
I love Jiminy Cricket in this. He's so funny.
Jack Horner's like, "What are you, a demon insect? Was it that he says?
I've got. I
Oh
can.
man,
We can run through it. He says, "I'm not a
what are
magic
you?"
locust. Why I'm not a locust at all." He's like, "What are you then? Some sort of demon grasshopper? A deadly fairy? Put a spell on the forest then." He's like, "I don't cast
I
spells."
don't cast spells.
I don't cast spells. And he's like, "Well, what do you do?" And he's like, "Well, I judge you." Just he's like, "I sit on your shoulder and judge your actions and the quality of your character." And then his line that he says to him is great. He's like, "I really did overpack." Oh man. And
Oh, man. And
Jiminy's.
you're not thinking at this point that they're going to be introduced to any more characters, so
Mhm.
it's a great addition.
And yeah, Jiminy is he's not in it for very long, but he's a great addition. Like it's kind of like you were saying when we first started. It's like even the characters that don't have big roles in this are really good, and it's a great thing too to start showing that difference, or like really getting the point across home that there's like no redemption for Jack. Like his character is very different from everyone else we're gonna see in this. And, and I just love Jiminy. It cracks me up. He's like, you're losing a lot of men. He's like, I'm not really stressing about the manpower. I've got bottomless bag of magic weapons. He's like, as your conscience. And he's like, oh my word, the noble phoenix. She's a symbol of rebirth and the eternal. And he just starts using her as a flamethrower. It's so good.
Don't get away of me flamethrowing.
Yep. So good, so good. All right, let's go ahead and jump ahead just a little bit.
Yep.
Because there's about a half hour left in this.
Yeah, we need to skim through this pretty quick.
Is there anything?
The major thing that happens here is that
that
Kitty teaches Perito how to do the
she's
eyes, and
it's really funny because he's like he can't do it.
Yeah. And then she gives Puss her blade, her small little blade.
Yep, which is important. Has a payoff at the end. Let's see here. I'm skipping ahead just a little bit.
No, you're fine.
Because I do.
It's getting late anyway.
It's almost 10 o'clock. Again, they have this, and what's so interesting about the way that they do this, it's like I've said before, but like any of the times that Puss in Boots seems to be getting a bit of his old self back, that's when death shows up. And so we get another moment. Oh, he's in his eyes again in this scene.
Just barely. And they don't even have to do that. And they do it, and it's just...
And I think... Oh, this is such a good shot, too. This was something that I didn't notice before, but he's in, like, a skull.
Oh, yeah.
He's standing in the skull, and he sees him after this kind of, like, somewhat of a triumph, right? Like, he's back in the groove. He's in the action, and death shows up again to mess with him. Like, always following him. Golly, it's so good. Goldilocks gets the map, and we get a little bit more from them. And at some point, we get her true reasoning and like what she's looking for with the wish, which is coming up. But we should talk about this scene.
Yeah, because Puss has a PTSD episode.
Yeah, a panic attack.
And he has a panic attack, and then Perito just comes and lays down on him.
And it's
fulfilling his arc of wanting to be an emotional service animal.
And it's really good because you see Perito like worried for the first time.
Yes.
And
he's not worried about himself. He's concerned for his friend.
Yep.
It's selflessness.
So good. And again, going back,
his worry comes from selflessness, not selfishness.
Yep. And like you've been saying the whole time, like you can see everything in their emotions. Good animation and the way that they handle that. It's very clear what's going on here. He doesn't have to say anything. You can really read into how he feels in this situation based on what we know of him and how he feels about Puss in Boots.
Yep.
It's so good. And that's like really, this is kind of the culmination of their relationship, where things change for them and he starts to see him differently and starts like Puss in Boots finally is starting to care about somebody else. And while this is going on, his relationship with Kitty, the same thing is happening. So you're really getting that like dynamic between you could call them our three heroes if you want to. The three of them are slowly, their walls are coming down. Puss is learning to change, and so is Kitty,
Yep.
Which is the whole, like we were saying before, it's the whole point of them going on this journey, ultimately, is for them to change for the better, to be deconstructed and then reconstructed into something else. So, they get the map, they find Goldilocks and the Three Bears, they find their home, and we eventually, at some point during this, we find out that what Goldilocks was looking for was a quote-unquote real family, and the reason that she's been doing this the whole time and not telling them what her wish was going to be is because she... What's the word I'm looking for, Joseph? She doesn't... It's not respect. I mean, you could say respect, but that's not the word I'm looking for.
She has a longing to find out who her real parents are.
Well, not even that. I wouldn't say it's that. Because the way that she goes about it is that she... it's like they're bears, she's not a bear.
Yep.
And so she thinks that in order for her to be satisfied, she has to have what she would consider a quote unquote real family,
A,
meaning
a normal
a
family.
normal family. Exactly. So there's a lack of satisfaction in the life that she has because she doesn't see it in it's not like it's not the idealistic idea of what a family is to her. And so she
Yep.
wants to use the wish to do that, and in the process doesn't realize that she's hurting the family that she actually has, which is great. It's a great moment with her where at up until that point they are kind of the like you're getting those subtle hints of who they are, but that's kind of the first like real dramatic moment of those characters, and it takes them to a deeper level than where they were for a lot of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were talking about before, but it's like the movie takes its time with every little thing that it's doing. It's taking its time, and I think that's great. So we find out here that this is what I was telling you before. It's like Kitty and Puss in Boots are very similar to each other because he's been thinking this whole time. He's like, I can't believe I left you at the church, and then she's like, oh, I didn't show up anyway. And it's the two parts of them, right? So you have him who he's like he can't commit to any other relationship except who like his selfishness, right?
Itself.
Because
Yep.
she even tells him, she's like, I've never been able to compete with your true love, which is you. It's yourself. And then on her side of it, she's so untrusting of people, including Puss, that she didn't show up either because she didn't trust that he would go through with it. And now she was correct about that, but at the same time, it's her biggest character flaw is that she doesn't trust anybody. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and they kind of work through it. Um, what you were telling me before that what's the thing that Jack says? Are we there yet? Is it in here?
Oh yeah.
And
What was it that I was saying that he says? Oh no, it's when um yeah. It's you're about to be there
okay.
because yep, this is it. I love how he's going bridge stepping on his men.
He's like, flex the glutes. I need a solid surface. He's like, there's good in all people. He's like trying to convince himself that Jack is still redeemable. He's like, Jack, maybe we need to dig a little deeper. And he's like, and this is what he's talking about. It's he's like, I never had much as a kid, just loving parents, and stability and a mansion and a thriving baking goods enterprise for me to inherit. Useless crap like that. And again, it's and they're using exposition to tell you about the characters, but it's very quick, and it's also in a manner that's explaining the personality of these characters whenever they do stuff like this. So like we were talking about before with Perito, when he's telling his story, the way that he tells it, it's not just that he's telling you all of this, he's giving you this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's doing it in a way that is explaining his personality and his outlook on everything as well. And
Yep.
so this is like the big one for Jack Horner, where he's doing kind of something similar, and you're getting his outlook on everything with the stuff that he's saying, which is the exact opposite of what we complain about a lot of the time when they tell us everything, sort of like Rebel Moon,
Yes.
where they're telling us a bunch of stuff, but we're not really learning anything about the characters. It's just a big lore dump or just a dump of exposition.
Dump.
Yeah, where you now know a whole lot of information, but like I keep saying about that movie in particular, I still don't know any of these characters. I don't really understand their personalities, their wants, their hopes, their goals. It's all just sort of like, well, here's kind of the story, and we're just going to tell it. It's like if someone was reading a book to you, except it's just the character, which is not the way that this movie is handled at all. And you find out, that what he wants, his wish, and that he wants all the magic in the world. Again, reflections. Get another one right here. With and here's what I would say. And it may not be 100%, but it does seem to me that the reflections have a tendency to show. It's like you see the reflection, and then the character that's being reflected in it is like learning something either about themselves or about another character. in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's very intentional the way that they handle all of that.
Very well done.
Um,
And then Jack gets rid of him.
oh yeah. He's like, agree to disagree, and then he's like, sweet mother of goose, Jack. He's like, you can't bake pie without losing men, and he's like, that was horrible. Your wish is horrible. You're horrible. So good. And he's like, you're an irredeemable monster. What took you so long, idiot? And he flicks him off. And he's like, you're not chatty, are you?
Jiminy, that's what I was going to say. That's my favorite part is when he says, or one of my favorite lines, "You're not chatty, are you?" Because it just serves his character so well. He gets rid of Jiminy Cricket right after that, and then says, "Hey, you're not chatty, are you?" And, and you can relate because it also serves the purpose of Jiminy Cricket talks a lot.
Yeah, he
And
does.
so-
He says a lot, and he's probably a little egotistical as well, you know, because there's that. I'll go ahead and mention it, but like there's a line at the end of the movie with the Goldilocks and the Three Bears when he talks about like ethical business practices with them, and he's like, "Oh, a cockroach." So we go through this whole scene where they steal the map back. Perito gets in on the action and actually helps them, and then gets
and
kidnapped.
then Puss has to confront his previous life.
Yes, which is very important because you really start to get the idea that they are distinguishing like who he used to be to who he is now, like past lives. It goes beyond just like the sort of like you could say his death and rebirth cycle, and that they all want him to go to do the wish. So the legend can live on, but we get a moment in here. I think it's after this. So Perito gets saved, and there's some really great moments and some character interactions with him and Goldilocks and Three Bears. And I think there's actually a really important piece of dialogue in here, right? Where he talks about how he's also an orphan.
Yeah.
Let me see.
And how she won the special orphan lottery.
Oh yeah. He says.
You won the orphan lottery.
Speaking from one orphan to another, Goldie, because like he sees the value in her family, and it's like Perito really is like the thing that's holding the story together in a lot of ways. That's moving it along in the way that they want it to be shaped. Like the people who wrote this wanted it to be shaped. Where he's like, yeah, you won the orphan lottery, and this is that first moment I think where she's starting to realize. Maybe what she was looking for, she doesn't even need the wish for, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, they go
that
through
moment of realization.
Yeah, absolutely. So they go through that, and he's struggling because there's part of him that does want his life back. But then you get this moment, and this is that thing. It's that connection to almost the very beginning of the movie where it was like I was telling you before. It's very much on purpose that he's alone in that scene in the bar. Yep. And this is just another reflection of that. And I think they show a couple other ones, like him alone by the campfire with the horse, him leaving Kitty at the altar, and he's realizing who he was, and that these reflections of him are not the person that he wants to be anymore. He's found something else.
He doesn't want to be an egomaniac.
Yep.
And then death comes to confront him.
Yep.
And he reasonably gets scared, has another anxiety attack, right? And runs away.
He runs, yeah. I don't know if he has another panic attack necessarily, but he definitely runs, right? Because he still hasn't changed, and he is panicking because now and it's all a game, right? We're like death is still messing with him, and ultimately wanting to prove. Because I think even I would say this. I think that no matter what, the outcome for death was either to prove that Puss in Boots was either just a vapid, selfish individual because he was going to make the 9 lives wish, which he was calling the coward's way out, right? Oh, get your 9 lives back so that you don't have to confront me, or in Death's minds, he was going to give up and take his last life.
Yep,
In Death's mind, that's what was probably going to happen.
I agree.
And again, it's very subtle. There's like it's a little bits of dialogue in here that talk about those things. And I think, was this the moment he was, because he talks about how he was there for all of them. He's like, I was there for them all. I was there to witness them all. Frivolous. But you didn't even notice me because Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death, right? And it's interesting because that whole thing is like death kind of has a he's like kind of out to prove something to Puss in Boots, you know. It's
Yep.
like this guy who laughs in the face of death, like literal death, and he's faced with it, and it's like, oh, you're not so big once that's the case, isn't it? He's like, you're not laughing now.
Yep.
You're no bounty hunter. And he's like, death. And that's when we finally, if you've been watching the movie for the first time, that's when you realize it. I'm death, straight up, and I've come for you, Puss in Boots. And he's like, but I'm still alive. He says, I'm not a cat person. I find the very idea of 9 lives absurd, and you don't value any of them, so do us both a favor and take this last one now. He's like, make the wish. Go ahead, run for it. Make it more fun to me. And this line in particular is very important because there's some. I saw some criticism that they're like, oh, the only reason he escapes death at the beginning of the movie is so that the movie can happen. But this, as a character writing moment, proves that what he cares about is the hunt just as much as the kill, if not more.
Yes.
It's the thing. He lives for
The thrill of the hunt.
thrill
is
of it.
what motivates him.
Yep. So I just wanted to point that out because it's a pretty important line. Anyway, so he starts running, and Kitty and Perrito see him, and they don't really understand what's going on. You could say there's. Oh, and then we get the stuff with Goldilocks where she finally tells them, and
they're shocked initially, but then they come to support her. She tells them that she wants a normal family, a proper family.
Yeah, because she's not a bear, and even Mama Bear says that I had a feeling this might happen one day. But she says, if this is something that's going to make you happy,
we're going to support you and get it.
We'll get the wish for you.
Get the wish for you. And
it's that supportive family thing. And it's so important for these moments, and because it's the stuff that breaks down Goldilocks ultimately into making the correct decision in the end. So he gets confronted one more time. He finally confesses like everything that's really going on. And so does she. And it's kind of that moment for Kitty where she realizes that it's important to it's so important to him, and that she cares about him enough. She's like, fine, make your wish, if that's what you really want. And then we have like our big confrontation, which is really great. I love this, pretty much this whole scene. They're all fighting over the map, and
I love to. I always wonder why that one of Jack Horner's men was allowed to stay alive. Like, what's the purpose in that? What's the character purpose in that?
Yeah,
and it's to show the danger of the falling off the star.
It pretty much. Yeah, they use it to just drive home that he does not care, and it's a bit comedic because she gets hit. Right. Let me see if I can find that because it's funny. Let's see here. So they go up. Oh, yeah, it's right here. Where she's like fighting. She gets hit. Let me see if I can. Right there. She gets hit. He's like, oh, come on, you walked into that one. Even though she didn't move at all, he just hit her with the magic staff. And he goes, Mr. Horner, I need your help. And he's like, duly noted, but a little busy at the moment. Pew, pew. And then she gets taken out. And again, it's what I was telling you before. It's like the movie does a really good job of also laughing at death in this.
Yep.
it's dark humor to a degree, but it works so well in the way they handle it.
And then Puss finally gets to have his moment with death.
Yeah. Oh, but we got to talk about this real quick. This is
Oh yeah,
the turning point for Goldilocks, where Baby is getting pulled in, and again, it's important for that character, that Jack Horner's last of the Baker's Dozen, so that you understand the stakes.
Yep.
With what's going on, because otherwise it's like, okay, so why is this bad? Like, I guess, yeah, I mean, it kind of could still work, but it works better when you realize, like, oh, he might get disintegrated. And then at the last second, she saves him, and it's so good. You're the smash, I'm the grab. It's so, I love it, dude. I love this movie. I love this.
I know.
It's so good.
It's so great.
And yeah, so they're going through their whole thing, and then we'll go ahead and get to the last bit. And again, Perito is the one who ultimately helps Puss understand. He's like, I don't know about this, but if you think you need those lives, take it. And he says, I've only ever had one life, but sharing it with you and Kitty has made it really special. Maybe one life is enough. And then this is, again, the final confrontation with death. And he's so cool. It's like, even, what a great little moment, too, where you realize there's something very different about him than the rest of the characters when he just walks through the wall. It's like it doesn't phase him.
It doesn't affect him.
Yep.
At all. And he does a shield barrier around Puss so nobody else can help him.
Yep.
Because
he has to be the one. He says, run away to more lives, like I was saying before. His goal here is either to end Puss in Boots or prove that he's not the brave hero that he says that he was.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
it's going to be selfish, or he's going to be selfless and give that wish up to someone else.
Mm-hmm. And then we get, again, another scene of his life flashing before his eyes. But
I love this, dude, because I love the striking contrast between the beginning of his lives flashing before his eyes and the end right here when his 9 lives flash. Because initially we witnessed a montage, as we said earlier, of his significant memories spanning his 8 lives. However, during this occurrence, we see his most significant memories are primarily centered around his adventures with Kitty and Perito.
Yeah, this
and
whole
kind of, at least
journey.
To me, his whole journey with them, and it shows that Puss has lived his final life more fully and meaningfully than his previous 8.
Yep, love
and
it.
It's just a wonderful message that no matter how badly your life has gone, it's never too late to have a change of heart and live life to the fullest.
Yep, so good. All those little moments. He says, lives flashing before your eyes. He says, no, just one. And then they have their whole fight. And I love, so I don't know if you realize that, but they slow down the frame rate for the fights.
Yes, they do.
And it's really cool. I'd be curious. I'm sure there's some behind the scenes stuff about it, but I'd be curious about the intentionality behind doing this and what made them decide to do it like this. And even stuff I love. It only happens for a moment, but this little like silhouette part of their fight is really cool to me.
Yeah, it is.
And again,
it's a serious fight because you think, hey, he can actually lose this fight. We don't know if I didn't really know if he was going to make it out or not.
And again, it's something where it's like nothing in the movie overstays its welcome. Even these little moments where like, oh, dang, that's such a cool creative choice. And then it's over in like 5 or 6 frames. And then they get back to the fight. And the back and forth is really good, where it's like Puss gets the upper hand, and then Death gets the upper hand and knocks his sword out, and he's like, you really got to stop losing that. And it's so good. Dude, this is why Death is like my favorite, is definitely my favorite character in the movie. It's like he's constantly just oozing confidence. He knows who he is. And he's pretty much always kind of in control of the situations that he's in. Even in the end, when he, because he essentially, like, you could say he kind of gets bored with the fight because he realizes, like, he's like, you're not afraid anymore. He's like, there's nothing to this, when it's like, okay, something's changed in you. It's not even like, hey, congratulations on finding a new outlook. He's like, oh, I'm kind of bored with you now. It's so good.
Yeah.
Um, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just listening to you, just saying. Yeah, I really do think it's good, especially having that uh, Puss pulling out that sword at the end to uh, block Death's swing,
Yeah,
showing that.
what's he call it? His yeah, these little shots are so good. He misses and he calls it say hello to my gatito blade. He breaks it and he gets the strike and it's basically a the contrast to what happened to Puss when they first fought,
Yes,
where he gets that strike on his head.
and
And
he
then
cares about living his life to the fullest now.
yep.
He's found his meaning, and it goes far beyond just himself.
Yeah. And he says, "But I'll never stop fighting for this life."
And then I love that the wolf gets mad, and essentially you can tell that he's just like, "This wasn't supposed to happen. I
Yep.
was supposed to
And the
be able to."
reflections.
Yes,
I think
again,
it's
in
the
both their eyes.
yep, and then, like there's like equal ground now. It's almost like what they're trying to get across, is that instead of it just being death reflected in Puss's eyes, he's now reflected in Death's eyes.
Yep. And life is reflected in Death's eyes that
That's
Puss
cool.
wants to live. And I love this. And Puss is built back up to this excellent swordsman, and not to the detriment of, not in the sense to prop up Kitty and to be the detriment of himself, with
Yep.
exactly what happened to Luke and also to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I keep harking that just because Disney's so stupid, and this is the great way on how to deconstruct the character and rebuild it back up after seeing all the bull crap that we have witnessed.
Yeah, and he tells him to live his life well. He's like, we'll meet again. And he tells him in Spanish, like on death or whatever. I'm pretty sure is what he says, or like when I finally die.
Yeah. And then Death just does his whistle, and then Kitty's like, I thought you were being melodramatic
Yeah.
when you said that. And then he hands over the map saying, "Hey, the wish is yours." Finally completing his arc.
Mm-hmm. And then we get one last fight with Jack Horner. They do the double.
Special move.
Yeah. Oh, and again, the last little bit of Perrito's arc where he finally does the super cute stare, and you really
See
do.
the reflection of Jack.
Yeah.
And Jack's like, "Oh, it's so cute," and he just like flicks him away or whatnot. You think that would work on me?
Yep. Oh, and he's like his bleeding nose.
Yeah.
So, and then everybody works together.
And they do
Spanish
the double thumb
splinter.
stab.
And they tear it apart and beat Jack, and he gets consumed by the thing that he desired most, which is probably another theme.
Yes, it is.
And again, it's like I mentioned it earlier, but death can. Oh, let's see. What did Jenna say? Death can have me when it earns me. Puss in Boots, probably. And that's it. And it was kind of like what I was saying before, though, and we've talked about this, and because it always needs to probably be reiterated, even though it's less of a problem than it was back when Last Jedi came out. Themes in movies are important and in and of themselves are not a problem. It's when everyone is just talking about the themes in something that sucks.
Yes.
Like The Last Jedi, where, it's like everything's about my themes, but your story is pretty terrible, and, you're trying to get all these things across without making your characters interesting or giving them, purpose, if you will. Or the deconstruction and reconstruction, which is a problem with a lot of the modern stuff too.
And ultimately, all the protagonists and then one of the antagonists ends up getting what they want.
Yep. And they kind of go on with their lives. And I love that it's kind of the roundabout thing at the end where it's like Jack Horner's gone and they're like, oh, somebody needs to take care of his business. And then of course the moment between Goldie and Perito where she says like, oh, I won the orphan lottery, and they wink. She says, what can I where was it? It says, well, what can I say, I won the orphan lottery, and winks at him. They wink back, and they all go on their way. And then of course Jiminy has to, you got to get that one last joke in.
Yeah, with the ethical business practices.
Yeah.
And then Goldilocks tries to hit him with. I mean, you can take as being like she just wanted to hit her brother in the nose.
Yep. There's a talking cockroach on my nose. Get it off. And then they talk about the name, and he's happy with the name Perito, which I looked up, and it means dog.
Okay. Yeah.
Or doggy, depending on the translator you're using, which I liked. And that's it. That's Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And dude, I mean, honestly, we probably could, if we wanted to, we probably could have spent like another 2 hours talking about this movie. Like,
easily.
there's so much in it. There's a couple things that I didn't mention, and one real quickly that I wanted to, that I love because it's a great little character moment for Perito. I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick. When we're first introduced to him, they show because everybody in the movie has like wanted posters,
right?
And here it is. And we get one for Perito too, but it says unwanted needs a home, and there's little slabs at the bottom, but there's nothing on them.
Yep.
And then you also have the little like tumbleweed rolling by. Which is a nice little touch as well, to be like,
it really is.
It's in this like place where it's like no one's around here, like no one's seeing this. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. But yeah, man, excellent movie.
Completely agree.
One
of my favorite movies. One of my favorite kids movies. In fact, when I made my Letterboxd account, this is one of the movies I put in my favorite list.
Nice. Yeah, I guess I'll have to do that eventually when I can actually sit down and figure all that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, highly recommended. This will be one of the movies that we probably end up referring back to a lot at this point. Just, like we talk about Arcane and
villain archetypes and how to do them well.
Yeah. It's funny that's like there are two, like in the modern era, there are two animated things that stand like so much taller than a lot of other things we've gotten over the last like 5 to nearly 10 years. You know what I mean? Maybe not quite 10 at this point, but we're really getting into that territory of it's like
nearing that mark.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I've got.
Same.
I don't know. We'll have to talk about what we're doing next week. I don't know when Halo comes out. It's not till February though, right? So we have a couple more weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, we got Avatar, and then
that's
Halo
in
2
February.
comes out in February.
Yeah, both of those are. So who knows? Maybe we'll do another movie next week. We'll knock out a couple.
Oh yeah, Halo arrives in oh wow, Halo arrives in like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah,
February 8th.
Maybe we do another couple movies that we're more positive on before we have to get back into the toilet, the metaphorical toilet, just like Puss in Boots crawling through the toilet to get away from death. Anyway.
Amen to that.
I think that is going to do it for episode 160 of The Underground. Thank you guys so much for joining in today. Thank you for Jenna for all of the donations today.
Yes,
for being a producer, not only on this episode, but also on the previous episode. We appreciate the value for value system. It's the thing that's going to help us avoid having to monetize content in the future. So keep it up, and we will, over time, do our best to try to make the show even better. As everything grows, as we have more people coming in who are willing to donate, we're really thankful for you guys. And all the stuff you do, whether you show up to live streams, whether you donate any of that. It's great. So, Joseph, unless you have anything else to say?
Nope, I do not.
All right. Well, until next time, y'all, take it easy.
See ya.